American Comics. Intercepting the female superhero, the symbiote is invincible. Chapter 21. The wheelchair immediately stopped. 10 minutes later, a group of people gathered in the house, sifting through some documents from Laura's backpack. Logan also found several videos on the nurse's phone. Through this information, everyone now clearly understood Little Wolf Girl's background. Laura is a mutant enhanced by Essex Corporation using genetic technology. There are many children like her, with different abilities, but without exception, they were all trained by Essex Corporation as ruthless killing machines. However, because the R&D department created the X-24, a more easily controllable humanoid weapon, Essex Corporation decided to eliminate these experimental children. The method of elimination, naturally, was a brutal carnage. Yet, some caregivers developed feelings for the children. They couldn't bear to watch them die tragically, so they escaped with a portion of the children. Laura Kinney was one of them, codenamed X-23. The mercenary team led by Donald Yesterday, and Dr. Rice and others still lying in the open space now, were all personnel sent by Essex Corporation to pursue her. Furthermore, the videos proved that Laura was indeed a child created using Wolverine's genes. She is Logan's genetic offspring, and their relationship is father-daughter. Seeing this, the old Wolverine couldn't help but glare fiercely at Ron beside him. The latter, meanwhile, was nonchalantly holding his arms. This made Logan even angrier. "You little brat, you actually threatened my weak, pathetic, and helpless daughter. You're a menace." Ron noticed the old Wolverine's gaze and thought, without a shred of self-awareness, "What's that old geezer glaring at me for again? Logan, we need to send Laura here so she can be safe." Charles picked up a piece of paper left by the nurse. A geographical coordinate was written on the paper. 48.97033N, 102.1554991W. Logan temporarily gave up his eye torture of Ron and took the note. He looked at the suffix name after the coordinates and scoffed, "A mutant's Eden. There's no such place, only some foolish guys would have such a fantasy." Hearing him say that, Laura unhappily bared her teeth. "Yen. Laura, we will send you." The professor smiled kindly, soothing Little Wolf Girl's emotions. Then, he looked at Logan and said seriously, "Logan, you took that woman's money, you promised to send the child there." Logan turned his head away unhappily, looking to the side. However, he didn't refute Charles's words. It was afternoon. After getting ready, the group prepared to set off with Laura, embarking on the journey to North Dakota. Ron also found his SUV and sat in it, content. X-24 was already in hand. It was time to end this trip to the west. As for Charles and Laura's powers, the symbiote would replicate them on its own, so he didn't need to stay and watch. And after the powers were replicated, Ron didn't plan to reclaim the symbiotes from them. After all, Dr. Rice was not the final boss of Essex Corporation. To prevent little Laura from encountering another accident on the road, it was best to leave some contingencies. Based on the name of Essex Corporation and his memories, Ron speculated that this corporation was likely related to the major villain, Nathaniel Essex, from the X-Men comics. That is, Mr. Sinister, who lived from the Victorian era to the present, coexisting with Darwin. Speaking of which, this individual's goal was very similar to Ron's. Both sought to replicate various superpowers onto themselves. However, Nathaniel Essex achieved this by scientifically analyzing genes, while Ron's method was simpler and more direct, just possess them with a symbiote. "If I could catch Mr. Sinister someday, I'd hit the jackpot. He's a modified mutant with multiple powers." Ron stroked his chin, pondering. "But this guy likes to hide behind the scenes, rarely comes out to cause trouble himself, he's very sneaky. Moreover, the replication plan was just starting. If it came to a real fight, he probably couldn't defeat that old fox." Thinking this, Ron temporarily abandoned this unrealistic idea. He gripped the steering wheel with both hands and drove the car over to Charles and the others, intending to say goodbye to the little loli. Although he had considered taking Laura with him, Little Wolf Girl had many companions waiting for her in Eden, so she definitely wouldn't be willing to go with him alone. And given Laura's personality, keeping her by his side wasn't very suitable. So, it was better to leave her with her father to raise for now. Anyway, with the symbiote, Ron wasn't afraid of Laura being snatched away by some little brat. "Hey, you." Seeing the SUV drive over, Wolverine poked his head out of the extended limousine's driver's seat and asked unhappily, "Are you coming with us too?" "Do I look that idle?" Ron retorted, then couldn't be bothered to deal with the short-tempered old man. Dang, dang. He reached out and tapped on the window, bidding farewell to the girl in the back seat of the limousine. "See you later, Laura." Ron. Little wolf girl's small hands clung to the inside of the car window, her eyes faintly showing reluctance. Ron pointed to the back of her neck and smiled gently. "It will always protect you from behind, you don't need to worry too much on the road." As he spoke, a slender tentacle emerged from the little loli's collar, gently stroking her cheek in a comforting manner. Laura looked slightly shy, placing one hand on her cheek, her pinky finger and the small tentacle intertwining, conveying warmth to Ron across the space. Her other small hand tried to roll down the car window, but after much effort, she couldn't figure it out. "Let me do it." Charles smiled kindly, reached over, and helped her roll down the window. Laura was delighted inside and gave Grandpa a grateful look. She quickly opened her backpack, took out a dusty bouncy ball, and threw it out of the open window, lightly tossing it to Ron. Snap! Ron gripped it with 5 fingers, catching the small bouncy ball. He looked at the small round ball a few times and quickly realized something. "I understand, it's an exchange, isn't it?" Finding a box of chocolates in the car, Ron handed it to the little loli waiting eagerly at the car window, saying with a smile, "I didn't expect you to be such a little glutton." Laura hugged the box, which was half her size, tightly, and a barely perceptible smile even curved her lips, saying, "I love you, Ron. I'll miss you." "Ho." Ron controlled the symbiote, using a tentacle to ruffle her hair. "First time I've heard you say such a long sentence." "Yeah, I almost thought she couldn't talk before." Caliban, sitting in the last row of the limousine, also nodded in agreement. "Child, I can feel the kindness in you," Charles interjected, looking at Ron and saying, "Actually, we can talk, for example, about your unique ability. There's nothing unusual about it, don't you all have various superpowers too?" Ron turned the steering wheel to the left, turning the SUV back, and waved his right hand out the window. "Let's talk another time, Professor Charles, I wish you a safe journey." "Wait." At this moment, Logan in the driver's seat of the car suddenly spoke. "Your name is Ron, right?" "What is it?" Ron temporarily stopped the car, raising an eyebrow. "Are you still not convinced and want to have a go with me?" "If it were my younger self, maybe." The old Wolverine took out 2 cigars, lit one for himself and put it in his mouth, then tossed the other to Ron, saying perfunctorily, "Thanks." This was a thank you for Ron's earlier help in dealing with the Essex Corporation people. After speaking, he started the engine, drove the car onto the highway, and slowly drove away from the factory. Charles leaned close to the window, looking at the Jeep behind. "That young man, he will be the key to changing the fate of mutants." Caliban said strangely, "But my locating ability doesn't work on him, he shouldn't have mutant genes." He will lead the Symbi mutants to greatness again." A dark glint flashed in Charles's eyes. "Looks like that guy still left some tricks on you, Charles," Logan said from the front seat. He still vividly remembered the scene where Charles turned into a monster earlier. It's just that there was no way to resolve the hidden danger at the moment. After all, with their 3 remaining mutant elders' frail bodies, what else could they choose to do in such a situation? They were no longer what they once were. "Hey, it seems I've mellowed out a bit in my old age." Ron casually put his cigar aside, stepped on the accelerator, and drove the off-road vehicle onto the road. On a yellow wasteland, 2 cars drove in opposite directions, gradually moving away and disappearing into the wind. New York, Osborne Tower. In the conference room, all board members were present. Only Norman Osborn, the CEO, was missing. "Norman is still unwell," a middle-aged woman asked Norman Osborn's assistant with a grim expression. "Yes, Ms. Weiss," the assistant replied calmly. "All right, we understand." The middle-aged woman waved her hand. "You may go." "Madam, I'm afraid that won't do." The assistant maintained a composed expression. "Mr. Osborn instructed me to attend the meeting on his behalf." I said, "Get out." The middle-aged woman named Weiss suddenly barked coldly. At the same time, several board members beside her also cast oppressive gazes at the assistant. Quote. The assistant frowned deeply, but ultimately chose not to retort, silently backing out. After he left, a suffocating atmosphere immediately rose in the conference room. Everyone began to discuss uneasily. The progress on the stolen data case, why is the police's side so slow? Norman initially volunteered to handle this case, but in the past few days, he suddenly changed, becoming taciturn and very negligent in his work. Those stolen documents are very important. Although no similar products have appeared on the market yet, they will definitely cause devastating damage to our company in the future. Let's get someone else to handle the case. Norman is too sick. I don't think he's just seriously ill. I secretly had someone monitor and investigate, and Norman's recent actions are very abnormal. Several entries in the company's funds have been tampered with by him. You mean, after a period of discussion among the directors, they had to come to a conclusion. The CEO of Osborne Group might be planning to lead the way in embezzling funds and fleeing. Now the company is facing a major crisis, so it's inevitable that some people will have thoughts of self-preservation. But I didn't expect Norman to be the first to do so. He has disappointed us too much. Let's temporarily remove him from the board. This is also for the good of the company. Some members of the board had long held opinions against Norman Osborne and seized this opportunity to kick him while he was down. Norman is the chairman after all, so we need to grasp a strong handle. Let's first stop those useless projects he spearheaded. Osborne Group Research Area. A group of people quickly walked towards a laboratory. Click. The leader pushed open the door and immediately said to the white-coated Dr. Connors inside, "Drive. Connors, your experiment should be stopped." Dr. Connors, startled, put down the white mouse he was about to inject and asked, "Why?" "Because your experimental results have yet to receive clinical validation." A staff member in a suit and leather shoes stepped forward arrogantly, snatching the syringe from Dr. Connors's hand. "Unless you can prove the effectiveness of this agent on human bodies, instead of wasting time on pathetic white mice." "No, that won't do, it's not perfect enough," Dr. Connors retorted. "Experimenting on humans rashly will cause unpredictable consequences." The staff member sneered. "Using those disabled soldiers would be fine, wouldn't it? Who cares about their lives? How can you say such a thing?" Dr. Connors said angrily. "Hey," the staff member sneered, then waved his hand at the security guards behind him, "Escort him out." The security guards immediately twisted their wrists and stepped forward to grab him. "Sorry, Dr. Connors, please cooperate. We are just doing our duty, and we believe you will understand." "Wait a minute." Dr. Connors suddenly raised a hand and shouted. "What's wrong, Dr. Connors, did you forget to pack something?" The staff member said in a feigned gentle tone, "Don't worry, we'll help you throw it away." "Oh no, move it out. Give me 2 more days." Dr. Connors's eyes widened, and a special fanaticism unique to researchers burst forth from his gaze. "I will definitely give you a satisfactory answer." Coulson, in an office at a SHIELD base, Fury turned his chair to face his most trusted agent. "How is the investigation going on that new Hadborg CEO you mentioned 2 days ago?" "He's very suspicious." Agent Coulson took out several documents from the folder he was holding, handed them to his officer, and then analyzed them in great detail. In the case of the Osborne Group's confidential data theft, aside from the guards who clashed with Black Cat, only 1 researcher was killed. And although the identity of this researcher was falsified by the Osborne Group, after I had someone investigate, I found that his real name is Charlie Wiskin. A week ago, he was still part of Hadborg's research department and was the main person in charge of Hadborg's pillar profit project, the Skin Exoskeleto. He held confidential data for this project. The Osborne Group's cover-up of Wiskin's identity might have fooled ordinary departments, but it appeared full of loopholes when facing the vast resources of S.H.I.E.L.D. "You mean, this case is Hadborg Company's revenge?" Fury rested his chin on his hands and interjected, "But as far as I know, Hadborg's new CEO, Ron, is just a rookie. Before taking over as CEO, he was even a student. Where did he get the audacity and ability to commit such a crime?" "Agent Coulson, I think you must have other clues." "That's right." Agent Coulson nodded, then pulled out another report and placed it on the table, continuing, "On the evening of the incident, I was drinking coffee at Colota and happened to run into this young man named Ron. His strength might be superhuman. The coffee cup mentioned in the report has been tested, and there are no quality issues. Even a professional boxer cannot crush it with bare hands. And I also tried to follow him afterward, but I lost him in an alley not long after. Strength exceeding a professional boxer, and able to easily evade the pursuit of a level 10 agent. This is enough to show that this young CEO named Ron is not an ordinary person. Fury put down the report he had finished reading and asked a crucial question: is that coffee shop near Osborne Tower? Agent Coulson shook his head. It's too far. It cannot be used as direct evidence. However, I also investigated the girl he was on a date with. Her name is Gwen Stacy, the daughter of a police chief, and she excels in both academics and character. Most importantly, she previously interned at the Osborne Group and went to Osborne Tower that evening. So, Fury listened and asked, you suspect she is Black Cat? No, when Black Cat clashed with the guards, she was helping Dr. Connors with his research. Agent Coulson pointed to a section in his report. However, she is suspected of guiding the perpetrator. All right, I know you're reminding me to read carefully, but I actually prefer to hear your report. Fury picked up the report again, carefully rereading it. You also wrote. Oh, Mary Jane Watson, she is also a suspect. Yes, on the night of the incident, Mary Jane Watson was invited by Harry Osborne into the CEO's office. Later, someone found her running out of the office in a panic, and then Harry Osborne, who had suffocated and fainted, was found in the office. After Agent Coulson finished narrating, he said, the two scenes do not have a clear connection and can only be treated as another case for now. However, what puzzles me the most is, the Osborne father and son did not report this girl to the police. Even when I sent someone to the hospital to question Harry Osborne, he was hesitant to speak. Clearly, the Osborne father and son likely hold key information about this incident. There are many people to suspect, and we don't have too much direct evidence. Fury rubbed his son with his fingers, listening, then took out another file from the drawer and handed it to him. Let the people below handle this case. I have more important matters to entrust to you now. Somewhere in the suburbs. Tat tat tat. Fire. Don't stop. What the hell is this? The X-24 in the data wasn't this kind of monstrous thing. It must have mutated. Intelligence is inaccurate. Run. Intense gunfire and panicked shouts intertwined, echoing incessantly by the sparsely populated roadside. The armed personnel sent by Essex Corporation to retrieve X-24 were quickly slaughtered by a large black monster. In a pool of blood, the black substance on X-24 rapidly receded. Screech. A small device squeezed out of the wriggling symbiote and fell to the ground. This was the little gadget Essex Corporation had hidden in X-24's head. With a crunch, the device was crushed to pieces by a large foot. X-24 got back into the car and continued towards New York. The adamantium metal on him wouldn't pass airport security. So Ron had him travel separately. New York Airport. Phew, finally back in New York. A certain older young man, pulling a suitcase and covered in dust, disembarked from the plane, completely devoid of the demeanor he had at the Mexico border. The first thing he did after getting off the plane was to take a taxi to his favorite restaurant and have a hearty meal. After eating and drinking his fill, Ron then took out his phone and started checking the messages he had just received. Felicia. Master, do you really not need me to pick you up? Wanda. Ron, come home early, I'm making you dinner tonight. Wilson. Boss, everything you asked me to do has been taken care of. Gwen. Ron, you're finally back. You actually ran away from New York right after that day, how awful. No, you absolutely have to spend time with me today. Sky. How are you planning to thank me this time? Quote. Ron instantly felt overwhelmed. It seems being Aquaman comes with a price. He had just started as a fish pond owner and was already struggling to manage. But fortunately, having been influenced by a certain time management master, he quickly formed a plan in his mind. First, go thank Sky. Then, go spend time with Gwen. Finally, go home and appease Felicia and Wanda, those two girls. Perfect. Plan achieved. After making his plans, Ron typed in the chat, first asking Sky for her location. After all, this hacker girl drove her RV around all day, never staying in one place, making it impossible to pinpoint her current location. However, after receiving his message, the girl replied happily. Just wait, I'll drive over and pick you up. Tisk. Did Sky hack my location again? Seeing that the other party didn't ask for coordinates, Ron knew that his location was definitely exposed to her, like stripped clothes. He was happy to relax, so he simply ordered some desserts and juice, asking the restaurant to pack them up. Then he leaned back in his seat and waited quietly. Time passed bit by bit. Ron yawned boredly, casually tore open the packed bag, took out a cup of juice, and slowly sipped it. Soon, the juice in the cup was also running low. She wouldn't stand me up, would she? Please, a master's time is very precious, how can it be wasted like this? Seeing that a bit too much time had passed, Ron picked up his phone again, ready to ask Sky where she was now. But, just at this moment, the phone suddenly rang. He looked at the contact name on the screen and saw that it was indeed Sky calling. Could it be, she actually forgot to ask for my address? Ron muttered to himself and answered the call. Ron, help, I've been found out. From the phone speaker, the girl's anxious voice suddenly came, someone is following me. My location has been locked. Quote? This unexpected cry for help filled Ron's eyes with question marks, and he thought in surprise, Sky actually has times when she gets found out. This was the first time he had received a cry for help from this genius hacker girl, and he was inevitably a little surprised. Given Sky's technical prowess, it should be very difficult for ordinary people or organizations to trace her. So, she might have gotten herself into big trouble. Several thoughts quickly flashed through his mind. Ron aimed at the microphone and replied concisely, "Don't worry, I'll send you a location, just escape to this location, and I'll handle the people chasing you." After sending the message, he immediately picked up the packed desserts and quickly walked out of the restaurant. Wuhan, on a street in Queens, an RV sped by. Behind it, a black sedan was in hot pursuit. Clearly, this was no longer just tracking. It was an overt pursuit. In the driver's seat of the RV, Sky gripped the steering wheel tightly and turned it hard. The vehicle then turned onto a small road, heading towards the coordinates Ron had sent. "You bad guy, I'm counting on you this time," the girl murmured softly, pressed her foot hard on the accelerator, and drove the RV towards the coordinate point. The scenery outside the car rapidly receded. Soon, on the roadside ahead, she saw Ron waiting. He was holding a restaurant food bag in his left hand and calmly waving at the car with his right. Anyone who didn't know would think he was just a random passerby hailing a taxi. Screech. Sky quickly stopped the car, then opened the passenger door, letting him get in. After Ron got in the car, he handed her the meal bag and asked nonchalantly, "Want to eat?" "It's all your favorite flavors, except for a few truffle oil chocolates." "Hey, what time is it now?" Sky glared at him angrily. Then she turned her head, cautiously looking into the rearview mirror. In the rearview mirror, the scene behind the car was reflected. There was no sign of the black car. Phew, the girl breathed a slight sigh of relief. But she didn't slack off. She continued to drive the RV, fleeing. While driving, she cast a sidelong glance at the young man beside her, questioning, "You don't look like you can solve problems like this, you should at least bring a few bodyguards." "Looking down on me, are we?" Ron playfully moved his hand. "Your man here is very powerful." "Ow, I'm driving, don't mess around." Sky released one hand, brushed her chest, and gave him a resentful look. "If we get caught later, it'll be over. I feel like you're just making things worse." "Actually, I've already solved the problem." Ron shrugged, his tone relaxed. "You can find a secluded place now and pull the car over." "Really?" The girl was half believing, and she slowed down the car. Ron rolled his eyes slightly and said, "Otherwise, why do you think they stopped chasing?" Time rewound a few minutes. While Ron was waiting by the roadside, he began to scan the surroundings with his telepathy. He eventually pinpointed the person closely following Sky. And this person, he had some impression of him. Grant Ward, a double agent for S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra. After recognizing Agent Ward, Ron had a preliminary guess about Sky's situation. It was probably that this genius girl couldn't sit still again, rummaging through confidential data of various departments online, and ended up finding S.H.I.E.L.D.'s information. Given the strength of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s information department, it was indeed possible for them to trace her. After all, they could even infiltrate Stark Tower's system. When S.H.I.E.L.D. discovered that their database had been browsed, they would naturally send people to investigate and apprehend. Agent Ward was clearly that investigator. Thinking of this, Ron didn't procrastinate. Anyway, Hydra wasn't anything good. He immediately used mental control to freeze Ward, who was driving in pursuit, making his entire body unable to move, like a wooden puppet. The result of a car speeding with no one at the wheel is self-evident. Bang! The vehicle crashed directly into an ATM bank, instantly sending a black man who was withdrawing money flying. Ward, who was inside the car, was also in a bad way. If he didn't die, he'd be laid up in a hospital for several months. Wuhan. The RV stopped in a secluded corner of a nature park. Sky picked up a small self-defense pistol, looked at the path behind the car, and vigilantly kept watch for a few minutes. Seeing that no one appeared, she put down the pistol, her face beaming with joy as she looked at Ron in the seat beside her. I didn't expect you to be so capable, you really solved it for me. Ron raised an eyebrow. I'm not just capable, my capital is also very. Is that so? Sky turned to face him, taking off her jacket. Underneath, she wore a black vest. The vest's neckline couldn't quite contain her, with her southern hemisphere practically spilling out. Ron saw it clearly and couldn't help but comment, you're not bad either. No wonder they say Western girls develop well. Even the mixed-race Sky was no exception. The girl pouted, leaned closer, and asked, how do I compare to Felicia and them? As a top hacker, she naturally knew how many beautiful girls Ron had flirtations with. We'd have to try to find out. Ron replied with a smile, giving her a suggestive look. He had just realized that he no longer had any symbiotes on hand, so he started to set his sights on Sky. Sky understood and smiled, making a bold move. She grabbed the hem of her top with both hands and pulled it up. A beautiful sight was revealed. Of course, there was still a large bra covering it. Sky was a proper girl, how could she not wear anything underneath? With the woman being so direct, Ron, as the man, naturally couldn't do nothing. He wrapped his arms around the girl's waist, pressed his cheek against hers, and asked. You hacked into S.H.I.E.L.D., didn't you? S.H.I.E.L.D. Sky was reaching her hands behind her, skillfully using her fingers to unhook her bra strap. Hearing him suddenly ask about this, she asked back curiously, what is that? That mysterious department I infiltrated is called the Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement and Logistics Division. I almost forgot about that. Ron gently moved his hand, which was on her lower back, upwards, and at the same time explained to her, that's the department I'm referring to, Sky. You've gotten yourself into big trouble this time. S.H.I.E.L.D. is not an ordinary department. It reports directly to the World Security Council and possesses vast resources and power. Dealing with a hacker like you is effortless for them. That powerful. Sky's face showed surprise, and even her action of helping him unbuckle his belt paused. The girl, who had always been reckless online, seemed to finally feel a sense of dread for her actions this time. Ah, of course, that's what Ron thought. And just as he was thinking that, the girl threw both the belt and bra aside, then clapped her hands. Then, she slightly raised her chin and said proudly, if I can even infiltrate such a powerful department, I really am a genius. Quote. Ron was speechless. Is that the point? Yes, little genius. Ron's hand slid to the front, taking hold, and at the same time asked, so, how do you plan to solve the S.H.I.E.L.D. problem? Sky leaned in, their noses touching, her warm breath caressing his face. Asking me like this, you must have a solution, right? You're smart now, aren't you? Ron shook his head with a wry smile, gently caressing with his left hand, and said, it's not a good idea for you to keep messing around outside. Even if you escape S.H.I.E.L.D.'s accountability this time. Who knows, next time you might provoke something like Hydra, SPEAR, SWORD, HAMMER. It's better to find a legitimate job now. Who's messing around? The girl pouted playfully, but her body had already tilted into his arms. I'm still an innocent girl, don't talk nonsense. She rested her head on his shoulder and softly asked, so what kind of legitimate job do you want me to do? Ron raised his right hand, his index finger gently tilting her chin, looking at her beautiful face so close, and suggested, how about being my assistant? That's a nice thought, don't you already have Felicia? Sky blinked provocatively, her hands exploring. What, she can't satisfy your work needs? She's a secretary, you're an assistant, there's no conflict. Ron put down his right hand, took hold of her clumsily fumbling hand, and started to paint a grand picture. Trust me, this is the correct course of destiny. Once you're on my ship, your future will be bright. But your position doesn't seem very legitimate either, ah. The girl seemed truly led, grasping the mast of the ship that symbolized future hope. However, why did she always feel like this future was a bit out of reach? Feeling a slightly burning warmth in her palm, Sky gently shook her head, trying to shake off the heat that was rising to her head. But her eyes were still hazy. She simply stopped caring. She moved her pink lips closer, barely a hair's breadth from his. Then, she asked the last question. Then, will you be good to me? Facing this question, Ron didn't choose to answer directly and bluntly. Instead, he smiled gently and said with sincere eyes, actually, I plan to hand over the company to you to manage in the future. I believe you have that talent. Really? A faint light immediately shone in Sky's eyes, her gaze revealing unconcealed joy. This wasn't because Ron was going to give her the company. If she cared about money, she would have already added a few zeros to her account balance using her hacking skills. What truly made her happy was Ron's attitude of super trust. A man willing to entrust his entire career. That alone was enough to explain everything. Ron, you trust me so much. I will definitely do well. After saying this, deeply moved, the girl closed her eyes. Her lips pressed against his. After a long time. Their lips parted. Oh, by the way, Ron, you still haven't said how to solve that shield problem. The girl wiped her mouth, looked up, and asked, if I join your company, I won't have to be afraid of them anymore, right? I can make it so you don't fear them, but you'll have to do me a small favor. What? You'll know soon enough. Ron leaned down and started to get mischievous with his hands. However, Sky pushed him away. She rolled over and sat up. She pressed on his shoulders. All right, don't move, let me do it. Concentration 210%. Concentration 330%. Concentration 420%. Phenethylamine content exceeds limit. Symbiote synthesis. Time flew by. It was afternoon. The RV rattled and groaned under the strain. Its clanging sounds mixed with the clear chirping of birds in the park. As the chirping suddenly grew louder, the car door, crash, fell to the ground. Everything returned to silence. After a while, Ron got out of the car and kicked the completely ruined door. Your car's quality isn't great. Good thing this area has been abandoned for a long time. Inside the car, the girl lay sprawled out, not responding to him. She wasn't asleep. Her eyes just stared blankly at the car roof. After a long while, Sky weakly lifted a shapely long leg and extended it towards Ron outside the car. Her smooth foot lightly pressed against his shoulder, and she moaned softly, Ron, you beast, are you trying to kill me? Sorry, this matter is very important, I can't slack off. Ron said earnestly, collecting several wriggling symbiotes. After replicating the self-healing ability, the maximum concentration of phenylethylamine had indeed increased significantly. This time, he got a full 5 of them. If it weren't for Sky, who was experiencing it for the first time, being unable to hold on, and Gwen still waiting, he could have even gotten a few more. With a Superman physique, he was just that confident. You're talking nonsense again, what's so important about it? The girl hooked Ron's neck with the back of her foot, making him turn around, then rolled her eyes at him. Are you worried about suffocating yourself, or what? Ron glanced at the foot resting on his shoulder. Smack. He directly plastered a female symbiote onto it. Swish swish swish. As soon as the symbiote touched the girl's skin, it spread rapidly upwards along her leg, like a desert traveler finding an oasis. Even a few white marks were completely devoured. Ah, itchy. What is this? Sky shrieked, quickly propping herself up to tear at the black, strange thing. But it was no use, the symbiote quickly merged into her body. Stinky Ron, you just said you'd be good to me, and now you're already playing tricks on me. In her urgency, she looked at Ron with a wronged expression, tapping his chest with her toes, trying hard to kick him, but unfortunately, she didn't have the strength. Ron grabbed her ankle and said, exasperated, what are you afraid of? I wouldn't harm you. That was a living biosuit, a gadget for your self-defense. A suit, is it, a new product from our company? Sky scanned her body up and down, finding that her skin had returned to its smooth state. Not a trace of the lingering stains remained. This suit is quite good, it even has a self-cleaning effect. Good, very self-aware. It seems you've fully embraced the role of assistant. Ron released her ankle, took an ID card from his pocket, and tucked it into her chest. Keep this card safe. With it, you can go directly to Hadborg to report. HMPH, what kind of assistant gets this tired on their first day of work? Sky pinched the card with 2 fingers, held it up to her eyes, and looked at it. Name: Daisy Johnson. Gender: female. Date of birth: ah, you're so well prepared, so you had this planned all along. The ID card had complete information, even her real name. Ron, exposed, showed no discomfort and immediately praised her. For an excellent girl like you, with both talent and beauty, of course I had to prepare early to prevent others from snatching you away. _Z angle _ I like hearing that. After the symbiote possessed her, the limp girl regained some strength. She got up and put on her clothes. Then, she began to clean up the mess inside the car. Ron also helped her pick up the broken car door and put it into the space behind the RV. After a flurry of activity, Sky was neatly dressed again and sat in the driver's seat of the RV. She patted the passenger seat beside her and smiled at Ron, who was outside the car. Get in, boss. Where do you want to go? Your little assistant will give you a ride. Ron got in, pointing at the empty door frame. I think your car needs to be repaired first, otherwise the traffic police won't allow it. You have the nerve to say that. The girl rubbed her shoulder, glancing at his waist with a resentful look. You hit so hard, my bones almost fell apart. I've already held back a lot. Ron scanned her figure with lingering desire and said, by the way, I think you shouldn't drive around in the RV every day. Why don't you just live at my place? My house is quite big, you can just sleep when you're tired, no problem. Eek. Sky crossed her arms over her chest, blocking his view, and warned, you're definitely up to something again. This way, you'll be at the company during the day, at home at night, for a whole day straight. No, I'll die like this. Thinking of a certain person's terrifying stamina and inhuman size, the girl shook her head repeatedly, shrinking back. I'll definitely break. What are you afraid of? Ron reached over, helped her turn the car key, and smiled. Aren't Felicia and the others with you? So that's what you're planning. Sky turned the steering wheel, making the RV do a 360-degree turn onto a small road, and said grumpily, you want to party every night, don't you? Dream on. So, are you willing to come and live? Ron, the Aquaman, asked again shamelessly. In the past, he definitely wouldn't have brought every girl home. But now, for the sake of symbiote production, as an untiring ox, he naturally had to find more good fields to plow. Sky hesitated for a moment, ultimately not answering immediately, but instead changed the subject. I'll think about it. First, tell me where you want to go. Ron didn't press further, replying softly, Empire University. Want to go back to school? Okay, I'll take you after the car is fixed. The RV drove through the natural park, eventually turning onto the main road. Ron looked out and noticed that the figures on the street had become much sparser. Most pedestrians were in a hurry, paying no attention to the RV missing a door. It was as if staying on the street for a moment longer would lead to some danger. Ron could even sense many people hiding in street corners, taking drugs. From these phenomena, it was clear that the public safety in this area was very poor. This shouldn't be Queens anymore, right? We're approaching the Clinton district. The girl turned the car into a narrow alley, saying calmly, I heard there's a new cage auto repair shop around here, so we'll get it fixed there. You're quite brave, driving into Hell's Kitchen so calmly. Well, I have you. And this suit of yours works pretty well. Sky freed one hand, clenched her fist, and smiled. I feel full of power now. I could punch you down. Hey. Ron crossed his arms, leaned back comfortably in his seat, and scoffed. I wonder who was knocked down earlier, crying and begging for mercy. You. I'm not talking to you anymore. The young girl let out a soft HMPH, then focused on driving and said nothing more. Seeing her silent and annoyed, Ron closed his eyes to rest, mentally cataloging his current abilities. He wouldn't mention basic abilities like strength and physique for now. Beyond those, his superpowers included super self-healing, psychic abilities, spider sense, and the ability to control static electricity on his body. As for the ability factor for retractable bone claws, Ron had not replicated it yet. This ability wasn't very useful, it was just another weapon. He also didn't like making his appearance look strange. Among all his abilities, the one that surprised Ron the most was the psychic abilities he obtained from Charles. Because of this ability, his spider sense had also become much stronger. Originally, his spider sense could only be used passively, but now he could actively sense subtle things around him, somewhat like a divine sense. For example, right now, Ron could detect a small, uncleaned water stain on Sky's seat back. Cough, cough. It seems that choosing Professor X as his first replication target was indeed the correct decision. The strength of one's mental power can indeed influence many things. Now, let's talk about the self-healing factor. At that time, after the symbiote on Laura was replicated, Ron felt the intensity of the self-healing and found that it had only increased by a small margin. To verify his hypothesis, he even temporarily transferred the symbiote from Charles to Logan, replicating Wolverine's self-healing as well, but the increase in ability was even more negligible. This led Ron to a conclusion. Replicating abilities with similar genetic tendencies from different people would provide some amplification to the ability. However, this amplification would decrease as more similar genes were acquired, eventually becoming almost ineffective. The higher the similarity, the faster it would become ineffective. To put it simply, it's like drawing the same character in a gacha game. It can only be decomposed for materials. And these materials would also decrease as the number of duplicates increased. Screech. The RV's tires rolled over the dirty ground, splashing a puddle of sewage. Sky, in the driver's seat, also became a little more cautious. They had now fully entered the Hell's Kitchen area. It was no exaggeration to say that getting shot here was more common than eating breakfast. If it weren't for the lack of traffic police to stop cars, she wouldn't want to come to this place. And just then, Ron, lost in thought, suddenly sensed something. He looked up and murmured softly, "Hell's Kitchen truly lives up to its name. Such things happen in broad daylight, the local customs are truly simple." "What are you saying?" Seeing Ron mumbling, Sky thought he was worried about the public security here. Thinking this, the young girl put on a warm smile and comforted him, "Don't be afraid. Even if we encounter danger, I'll use the battle suit you gave me to protect you. Good girl, I didn't dote on you for nothing." Ron was also a little touched by this, and he smiled, pointing forward, "However, you don't need to protect me. Just slow down when we pass the intersection ahead." Slow down? Why? As Sky was wondering, she heard a lewd and arrogant voice from ahead. "Hey, beauty, want to have some fun with us?" At the intersection ahead, in the alley on the left. "Beauty, want to have some fun with us? We guarantee you'll have a blast." Several gangsters, holding firearms, lewdly blocked a girl's path and gradually surrounded her. What they intended to do was self-evident. The girl whose path was blocked had beautiful black hair, tight jeans, a white t-shirt with a black jacket over it, and a hint of gloom in her black eyes. Facing the approaching gangsters, she showed no fear. Instead, she stretched her wrists. She seemed ready to fight. "What, still want to resist? Didn't you see the guns in our hands?" The gangsters were full of disdain. They raised their guns and threatened, "If you dare to be uncooperative, after we're done with you, we'll sell you to the red light district. Hey, obediently take off your clothes, save us the trouble." "That's right, you'd best get on it yourself and move." Ha ha. The men laughed wantonly, not putting this cool girl in their eyes at all. One of them even put down his gun and started to unbuckle his pants. Click, click. The black-haired girl's white forehead twitched with visible veins as she clenched her fists, making a cracking sound. Her muscles tensed, and she took a step forward with her black boots, ready to beat these men until their lower bodies were dysfunctional. But just then, vroom, an open door, RV slowly drove past the alley entrance, attracting the attention of both the girl and the men. "Hello, everyone." Meeting everyone's gaze, Ron smiled. He then joined his fingers together and pointed them at his temple. He softly uttered a sound, "Pen." The gangsters immediately looked at him like he was an idiot. Is this some retard who escaped from a mental hospital? However, as soon as they had this thought, they all uncontrollably raised their hands and pointed their guns at their own heads. No, 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 terror shone in their eyes. They could only watch helplessly as their fingers pulled the triggers. Bang, bang, bang. Several continuous and rhythmic gunshots echoed in the alley. This did not attract anyone's attention. The people living here were all accustomed to it. At the same time, the RV drove past the intersection. Ron calmly lowered his fingers. He had to admit, if he used this mental ability to eliminate criminals, no one among the superheroes would be more efficient than him. After all, it was just a matter of a thought. Unfortunately, he had no interest in being a superhero. He would only intervene when he saw injustice. At most, he could only be considered a hero by interest. After the car drove away, Sky still felt lingering fear from the gunshots and gave Ron a reproachful look. You told me to drive slower, we almost got blocked by those robbing gangsters. As the driver, she clearly hadn't seen the situation at the alley entrance just now. Ron turned to look at her and teased, didn't you say you would protect me? It's best not to fight if possible. I haven't even tried out this battle suit you gave me yet, who knows how effective it actually is. As she spoke, the girl's peripheral vision glanced at his crotch, and she mumbled, HMPH, Big Ron. Little Ron, you two bad guys, you don't even care about me. In the alley, the bodies of the gangsters lay piled up, brains and blood splattered all over the ground. It was quite nauseating, but the cool girl in the black jacket didn't pay attention to any of it. She walked to the mouth of the alley, gazing at the RV driving in the distance. Her face was filled with a dejected expression. That person just now, was it Senior Ron? He didn't greet me, he really didn't remember me that time. And now, he's with another girl. Boom, the wall by the alley was suddenly slammed by a thin fist. Cracks instantly spread out like a flower, leaving a conspicuous crater. He must have a girlfriend already. The girl retracted her hand in frustration, turned her back against the wall, and murmured with her head tilted back, Jessica, how could you be so useless? You should have confessed earlier. After a while, she suddenly hooked her toe, picking up a gun from the ground. Then, aiming at the lower bodies of a few thugs, she fired a few more shots in a fit of venting. Bang, bang, bang. After a few gunshots, Jessica clapped her hands and let out a long sigh. Phew, much better. Ron isn't an ordinary person either. Glancing at the miserable scene on the ground, the girl thought with a slight ponder, if he knew I was the same kind of person as him, maybe he would look at me in a new light. On the other side, the RV finally arrived at its destination. It stopped in front of the auto repair shop. And inside the shop, a muscular black man was disassembling a tire in a bad mood. If you ask why he was in a bad mood, shit, he went to the bank to withdraw money and was actually hit and sent flying by a speeding car. If it were an ordinary person, let alone being in a bad mood, their heart would have stopped beating. He, Luke Cage, the mighty power man, where had he ever suffered such grievances? Could he endure this? Luke Cage firmly stated, he could endure it. Ah, there was no other way. He, a man who had regained his freedom from prison, now only wanted to live a stable life. If he really waited there for the police to arrive, his trouble would probably be even greater than that of the dangerous driver. After all, who could be hit by a car going over 100 miles an hour and still be perfectly fine? So, adhering to the principle of avoiding trouble when possible. At that time, Luke Cage not only did not retaliate, he even saved Ward, who was throwing up ketchup in the car, along the way. Then he brushed off the dust from his body and slipped away, returning good for evil. Quite stifling. Ron evaluated it as the standard, holy mother, heart of a superhero. That's right, the person at the door had completely understood what happened by reading memories. Originally, Ron was just curious and checked the owner's brain because he looked a bit familiar. Unexpectedly, there was such an unexpected gain. One could only say, it truly was the Marvel Universe. Super-powered individuals sometimes were like cats and dogs running everywhere, and truly ordinary people were almost becoming a rare commodity. Hey, boss, seeing that Luke Cage didn't come out to greet them, Sky actively poked her head out and shouted into the shop. The door of my car is broken, can you fix it here? Clang. Luke Cage put down his wrench and walked out of the shop. He approached the RV, looked it up and down, left and right, and asked, this car is quite interestingly modified. You're not a proper person, girl. Hey, who are you calling not a proper person? Sky instantly exploded with anger. She pulled open the car door, jumped down, and stood with her hands on her hips, saying, how can you run a shop like this? Are you trying to drive customers away? Did I say something wrong? Proper people wouldn't run all the way to Hell's Kitchen to fix a car. Luke Cage was unconcerned, walked past Sky, and went to the other side of the car. His gaze lingered on Ron in the passenger seat for a moment, then moved to the empty door frame, and he said with experienced insight, let me guess, the car door you've hidden must have bullet holes. I get this kind of work almost every day here. You don't need to hide it like this, show it to me. Ron put on a deadpan expression. I think you completely don't understand. Oh. He turned his head and met Sky's gaze. The girl nodded gently at him. Seeing Sky agree, Ron reached into the space behind the car, pulled out the scrapped car door, and presented it to our experienced Master Cage for inspection. No bullet holes. Wait, this is. Luke Cage took the car door, examined it, and said with a bit of surprise. Judging from the friction scratches on the edge of the car door, this door was broken from the inside, and it wasn't pushed through in one go, but was damaged by repeated pushing force. Oh, a bit of skill there. Ron thought with slight approval. Luke Cage speculated, then looked up at Ron's position and asked suspiciously, "Buddy, did you do this?" Ron nodded cooperatively, his tone calm. "In a sense, I did it." "Okay, so the car lock was broken, and you forcibly broke the door." Luke Cage looked at the scrapped car door and started to imagine things again. "Buddy, what did you hit the door with? You should use more professional tools, that way it would be easier for me to fix." Ron glanced at Sky, only to see her emitting a faint aura of danger. He was sure that if he dared to say something like, "I hit it with Sky," the hacker girl would definitely explode on the spot, then hack all his and the girl's social accounts into one group for public execution. For the sake of the pawn's safety, Ron still said euphemistically, "It was pretty much bare-handed, if the body doesn't count as a tool." "Oh, buddy, then you're really fierce." Luke Cage thought Ron had hit the car door with his own body. Like his shoulder or something. His eyes became a little strange because of this, vaguely guessing that Ron might not be simple. Luke Cage was a superhuman whose strength far exceeded ordinary people, so he could better discern the levels of human strength. To break this securely connected car door barehanded was definitely not something an ordinary person could do. Seeing his suspicious gaze, Ron looked at Sky and smiled. "Whether I'm fierce or not is up to my girlfriend to say." "Hey, I'm warning you too, don't say any more." The girl's face was slightly red, and she angrily stopped their conversation. "What? Friction scratches, repeated pushing force, forcibly breaking the door." These words were clearly about car repair in a proper sense. But hearing them made her want to find a crack in the ground and disappear. "What's wrong?" Luke Cage was a bit confused by Sky's sudden anger. Ron spread his hands. "Don't try to guess a girl's thoughts." "Oh, man, you're so right." Luke Cage remembered his ex-girlfriend, who had been stolen by his childhood friend, and suddenly felt a bit disheartened. He stared absent-mindedly at the car door in his hand and suddenly made a new discovery. How come there's another pair of handprints? The fingers are so slender, they look like a fae. Forget the handprints. Are you a mechanic or a detective? Sky didn't know when she'd run over, hastily reaching out to wipe away the handprints on the car door, covering up. "Just tell me, how much will it cost to fix this car door?" Clink, clink. Luke Cage pondered for a moment, tapped the car door with his finger, and said, $5,000. "No pro, The words he was about to agree to stopped. The girl's voice suddenly rose. "What, $5,000? That's too expensive." Luke Cage put on an indifferent expression. "Madam, don't think I didn't notice, your car is illegally modified. This is the price at my shop for such vehicles." Sky pouted unhappily, making a cute nasal sound, "Enwu." Unfortunately, cuteness couldn't pay the bills. She pulled out her flat little wallet, flipping through it again and again. Then she opened her phone to check her account balance. Finally, the girl could only turn her gaze to a certain rich patron, her eyes watery as she said, "Ron, you broke the car door, you have to pay for it." What did you say at the time?" Ron, wanting to tease her, leaned into her ear and whispered. It was something like, "Ron, just mess with it, it's fine if it breaks." What I said was, that was. The girl was too embarrassed to speak. No choice. She simply closed her eyes, cleared her mind, and said, "I don't care, you have to pay for this car door anyway." Ron lightly pinched her nose. "Then can your attitude be a little better?" "A little better attitude, you say?" Sky didn't think much, just hugged his arm, her soft, firm flesh pressing against him. Then she buried her face in his chest, whining, "Daddy Ron, please take care of me." Ron looked a little surprised. "Oh no, it's over." Only then did Sky realize, without thinking, what embarrassing words she had said. She secretly lifted half her face, her eyes full of grievance. "Just laugh if you want to, you must be wanting to laugh, right?" based on the girl's understanding of the boy's personality. At this moment, he would definitely take the opportunity to mock her again. However, Ron's actions were beyond Sky's expectations. He placed his palm on her head, gently ruffled her hair, and said softly, "It's not that bad." Rather than losing her dignity and calling him Daddy, she wouldn't use hacker skills to get pocket money. This cute action of the girl made him feel both pity and a little admiration. One could say, very unprincipled, yet also very principled. Schrodinger's principle. "Hey, you two, that's enough." Luke Cage, having been subjected to their public display of affection, said impatiently, "Do you two have money or not?" Every bite of their dog food he consumed, he couldn't help but remember his ex-girlfriend who had been stolen by his childhood friend. How could he stand this? "Sorry." Sky looked at Ron, a little embarrassed. Ron smiled and nodded at her. Don't worry. He could, of course, afford this repair fee. But in his heart, he had other plans. Ron secretly channeled a symbiote in his palm, looked at Luke Cage, and said, $5,000, right? No pro. Wait, Luke Cage interrupted Ron. He was very annoyed with this couple now, and retaliated by raising the price. In addition to the basic $5,000, there will be an additional $1,000 for repair material fees. Hey, what are you talking about? I've never heard of such a fee. Sky retorted unhappily, then tugged on Ron's arm, frowning. Forget it, Ron, let's go. Don't let them take us for rich fools. However, Ron maintained his smile, calmly saying to Luke Cage, "So, that's a total of $6,000, right?" "No problem." He said this, but did not take out any money. Instead, he took a watch out of his pocket. "This watch isn't a top brand, but it's worth $10,000. How about I use this for payment? Let me see." Luke Cage took the watch and examined it for a long time. Then, he took out his phone, searched for the brand's official website, and checked the anti-theft code. "Alright, that's it. You two wait aside, I'll have it fixed for you soon." After confirming it wasn't a counterfeit, Luke Cage cheerfully put the watch away and began repairing the car door. Clang, clang. Listening to the clanging repair sounds, Sky's eyes darted about, secretly glancing at Ron from time to time. Her lips parted and closed, wanting to say something. After hesitating for a long time, she still pulled Ron further away, and softly told him, "Ron, how could you use your watch to pay? That watch must be very important to you. If you're temporarily short on funds, you can tell me. Don't force yourself for the sake of appearances, I'm not that kind of materialistic person." "Huh?" Ron asked in confusion. "When did I ever say that watch was important?" "I know, you don't have to lie to me." The girl pursed her pink lips, her brown eyes filled with apology and emotion. "Something you carry with you like that must have special meaning." "Special meaning? It certainly has some." Ron thought silently. "Commemorating the first time I found a genuine item in a second-hand market, does that count as special?" He bought this watch on a whim in a black market when he was passing through the Mexico border. It might even be stolen goods. Thinking this, Ron put his arm around the girl's waist, and said helplessly, "If you think it is, then it is." "Ron." Sky nestled against him, full of affection. Bang! A deafening hammer blow suddenly rang out, interrupting their intimate moment. The two looked in the direction of the sound. They saw Luke Cage standing by the car door, waving at them. "Hey. It's fixed, you can drive off." "Oh, this guy is such a killjoy," Sky complained, then pulled Ron into the RV. Then she inserted the key and immediately started the engine. Clearly, she didn't want to stay in this rip-off, black shop, for another second. "I'm never coming to your shop again." The girl left this harsh remark and drove the RV away. After the two left, Luke Cage took out the watch again, admiring it carefully in the sunlight. "It seems that after bad luck, I always encounter a surprise. If I had worn a watch like this before, Reva might not have left me." He struggled to fasten the watch on his thick wrist, muttering to himself, "That Willis guy, isn't he just a little richer than me?" The watch's mirror gleamed with emerald light, and the hands were naturally designed, looking indeed very stylish. Luke Cage couldn't help but play with it for a while longer before returning to the shop. And just as he withdrew his gaze, on the watch's dial, a streak of black liquid silently glided across. Vroom! The RV quickly drove away from Hell's Kitchen, heading towards Manhattan. Ron glanced at the repaired car door on his right side, and thought to himself with satisfaction, not bad, after a car repair, I'll also have defensive superpowers. The reason he didn't directly pay Luke Cage, but chose to use the watch as collateral, was to let the symbiote hidden in the watch seize the opportunity to easily replicate his abilities during unguarded times, such as when the Power Man was sleeping. Luke Cage, originally named Carl Lucas, whose superpowers are great strength and high defense, a typical brute force tank. In prison, Luke Cage underwent an experimental super soldier modification as a volunteer, enhancing his muscle tissue and bone density, thereby gaining an invulnerable body and strength far exceeding that of ordinary people. His maximum strength can reach 25 tons, which is already on par with Spider-Man's level. In terms of defense, ordinary firearms and bombs simply cannot penetrate his skin, barely qualifying as a low-quality, low-spec version of a steel body. However, with this type of physical superpower, the stronger the physique, the better the effect produced. Ron estimated this. Once Luke Cage's superpower is replicated, according to his current physical strength, under attack from large-caliber sniper rifles and ordinary missiles, he should also be able to remain unharmed. Furthermore, with a monstrous healing factor that surpasses Wolverine's peak, he could even withstand a nuclear bomb explosion. On Earth, it seems there is no weapon that can kill him anymore. With a formidable physique, plus mental abilities, Ron's only remaining shortcoming is his resistance to magic. So, for now, he's still quite wary of a certain bald big shot who likes to play with the time stone. He hoped she wouldn't come looking for trouble when she was bored. It seems I need to step up the training of my adopted sister. Ron started thinking about Wanda. If Wanda could become the Scarlet Witch sooner, allowing him to replicate her affinity for chaos magic, then, his last magic side weakness would also be mended. Ron, what are you thinking about? Seeing the young man lost in thought again, Sky asked with a bit of concern, is it because of that watch? If you can't bear to part with it, I'll gather some money to buy it back for you. Please, stop thinking about that broken watch. Ron couldn't help but give her a white look, saying helplessly, silly girl, my company hasn't gone bankrupt, does it need important items as collateral for car repair fees? This girl is usually so smart, why does she become so silly when she falls in love? Enwu. The girl was scolded and pouted unhappily, I care about you too. Alright, we won't talk about this anymore. Ron reached his hand to the side of the chair and pulled out a dessert bag. I almost forgot about this, good thing I put it in the corner so it didn't get crushed when I made it. Hey, can't you say that a bit more subtly? Sky took this opportunity to return a white look to him. What does it matter, it's just the two of us in the car. Ron took out a cream puff and handed it to her, saying, have some. I'm driving, didn't you see? The girl playfully winked at him and opened her mouth adorably, you feed me, ah. Alright then. Ron turned his head slightly, holding the dessert, and brought it to Sky's mouth. However, he didn't rush to feed her. Instead, he curiously observed her delicate pink oral cavity for a few moments. He saw, her pearly teeth were pure and spotless, and her smooth, reddish tongue shimmered with a faint hint of water. Her uvula hung at the narrow entrance of her throat, and he could even see a trace of. Clearly, what Ron saw was the residue from the previous bite. He didn't expect there to be a little left. Why, what are you doing? Sky said with her mouth wide open and a slurred speech, hurry and feed me, my jaw is getting sore. Ah, coming. Ron snapped back to reality and stuffed the large cream puff in his hand into her mouth. The girl chewed a few times and nodded contentedly, it tastes good. Is it delicious? Then have some more. Ron took another puff from the food bag and pushed it towards her pink lips. I haven't finished this one yet. Although she said that, Sky still obediently opened her small mouth, revealing an oral cavity full of white cream. Ah. Hiss. Ron watched, a little captivated. It's so similar, truly similar. That open-mouthed, seemingly eager to be fed expression. It was exactly the same as when they were in the natural park, earlier. This made him feel a bit restless, wanting to put something else in there again. However, considering there wasn't much time left today and he still had to go to the school to see Gwen, Ron ultimately gave up the idea of creating a few more symbiotes. To be a good Aquaman, one must have the awareness that, there is gain, there is loss. And, once I get to the school, I'll just have Gwen compensate me then. With ulterior motives, Ron continued to happily feed the girl dessert. Sky was also very happy being fed, a little cream overflowing from the corner of her mouth, her face full of happiness. If she wasn't driving, she would probably be squint her eyes in enjoyment. After eating a few pieces, I'll get fat if I eat any more, no more, no more. Sky tilted her head slightly, looked at Ron, and joked, "Waiter, could you get me a glass of juice last, please, I'm a bit choked." Not eating any more. Ron immediately felt bored, picked up the restaurant takeout bag, placed it beside her, and said heartlessly, "Get yourself a drink." Hey, your attitude changed too quickly, didn't it? Sky was confused. Actually, the living biological battle suit on you can help you. Ron, of course, couldn't voice his dirty thoughts, so he simply changed the topic and instructed. Control her with your mind, she can help you do many things, drinking a beverage is just a small matter. Really? The girl was also a little curious when Ron said that. So she followed his instructions and tried to control the symbiote inside her body. Soon, 2 slender tentacles emerged from the hem of her clothes. One tentacle grabbed a drink from the bag and handed it to her. The other tentacle took the straw and inserted it for her. Sky's eyes lit up, and she exclaimed, "How convenient." She extended a soft tongue tip, curled the straw at her mouth into her mouth, and happily sipped. "This product is too advanced, if it can be mass-produced, our company will definitely make a fortune." Don't even think about that. Although the production of this battle suit has increased recently. But it's impossible to produce them in bulk like commodities. After speaking, Ron, adhering to the principle of not wasting, took the remaining desserts into his arms and slowly ate them. As for why he didn't bring them to Gwen. Come on, even if he's Aquaman, he still has principles and a bottom line, okay. How could he bring a girl's leftovers to another girl? As an Aquaman with principles, all the fish in the pond should, of course, be treated equally. Of course, women who are just for fun are an exception. Surely no one thinks that after playing a friendly match with a beautiful girl who's been around the block, you have to take care of her for life, right? No way, no way. Empire University, New York. Blue flags hanging at the school gate fluttered in the breeze, and teachers and students came and went in an endless stream. Founded in 1852, the university covers 21 acres and has a long history and good reputation, making it one of the top 20 universities in the U.S. Empire University has various colleges, including the College of Arts and Sciences, Business School, Medical School, and Law School, offering bachelor's, master's, and doctor degrees. The research fields offered at the graduate level cover a wide range of areas, including biomedicine, engineering, humanities, and finance. Empire University ranks very high in all disciplines. For example, in business school rankings, its business school has been ranked among the top 10 in the U.S. for several consecutive years. In the fields of engineering and science, Empire University plays an even more leading role. This shows that Empire University's reputation and status are very significant. Ron, Gwen, Wanda, and Felicia all attend this school. Chapter 31. Of course, Ron is 2 grades older than Gwen and the others, and he has temporarily taken a leave of absence to take over as CEO of Hadborg. Ron, I'll drop you off here. Sky parked the RV by the side of the road, waved lightly at Ron in the passenger seat, and smiled, "Thanks for the dessert treat, I'll consider living together." "Alright, be careful on your way. If you encounter an organization like S.H.I.E.L.D. again, don't panic." Ron pushed the door open and got out, instructing her, "Remember to use the battle suit I gave you, it can help you solve most problems." Sky nodded and replied, "I will." Beep. He swiped his ID on the scanner. Ron strolled past the campus security office and walked towards the academic district where Gwen was. The campus area was quite large. So, along the way, he didn't run into any acquaintances to greet. Only some girls would glance at him a few times, then cast enthusiastic looks. But Ron ignored them all. He had long been accustomed to being watched with such eyes when he was in school. Teenage girls, it's normal for them to be a bit restless. Unfortunately, none of them met his standards for creating a symbiote. It wasn't until he passed his own academic district that Ron saw a few familiar faces. Although they weren't classmates, he had met them a few times. They were hiding in the distance, whispering, and occasionally stealing glances in his direction. With the enhancement of his mental power, Ron clearly heard what they were saying. Is that Ron? I didn't see wrong, did I? Didn't he drop out? What drop out? He took a leave of absence to become a CEO. I only looked at his face before, but I didn't expect him to be a rich guy. I wonder how he compares to Harry Osborn. No matter what, you with your bucket figure can't get him, Bella. Hey, Jenny, say that again, who has a bucket fig, Wait. Bella was speaking when she suddenly leaned forward, looking towards Ron's direction. There's a girl walking towards him, is she trying to flirt? Who's so brave? Ron is very shallow, he only likes beautiful women. Everyone curiously followed her gaze. They saw a girl wearing glasses. The girl's face was obscured by her hair, making it a bit hard to see. But they could see that her clothing was very simple, completely unfashionable. Jenny immediately snorted disdainfully. Dressed so plainly, I guarantee that Ron will severely humiliate a girl like this who has no self-awareness. Just like 3 months ago, he sternly rejected that slut Valerie's advances. Valerie, whom she spoke of, was a famous beauty in the school. However, her fame was due to promiscuity. Meanwhile, Ron also noticed the girl with glasses walking towards him. And unlike Jenny and the others watching from a distance, he could see her face very clearly. The girl had a snow-white, delicate face, with a hint of cute innocence in her expression, exuding a strong sense of purity, which was rare among European and US girls. This girl, Ron knew. And he had known her in his previous life. She was the girl with glasses from the movie, The Amazing Spider-Man. Although she only appeared in a few scenes, her outstanding beauty left a deep impression on Ron. And in this world, she was Gwen's classmate. Through repeated encounters, Ron gradually became acquainted with her. Ron, it really is you. After walking up to Ron, the girl with glasses smiled politely at him and said, Gwen said you would definitely come back to school specifically to be her male companion, and she was right. Of course, since it's Gwen, Wait, Ron paused, asking in confusion, Hannah, what do you mean by male companion? Didn't she tell you? Hannah's eyes looked even more innocent. It seems, she wanted to give you a surprise, she should have told you in person. She was a bit flustered, apologizing awkwardly, I can't believe I just blurted it out, I'm so sorry. It's fine, I'm already at school, aren't I? The girl's charming appearance made Ron subconsciously reach out, wanting to ruffle her little head. But as he raised his hand, he realized that this action seemed a bit inappropriate. After all, Hannah wasn't a fish in a pond, she wasn't as intimate with him as Felicia and the others, so it was better to be a gentleman in his behavior. Thinking of this, Ron withdrew his hand and asked the girl, so what exactly does male companion mean? Can you tell me more? Look, she's apologizing. In the distance on the campus boulevard, beneath the teaching building. Jenny stared intently in Ron's direction, a look of, I knew it, on her face. I knew Ron would be impatient with her. Ron raised his hand, he's not going to hit her, is he? Bella watched, eating her popcorn, and said, that would be a bit much. No, look, he put it back down. That girl must have said something outrageous that made him a bit impulsive. Ron wouldn't be that violent. It's like this, tonight, there will be a friendly dance party on campus, and Gwen probably invited you to be her male companion. Hannah spoke with her head slightly lowered. Seeing Ron withdraw his hand, a hint of almost imperceptible disappointment and inferiority flashed in the girl's eyes. She was the type who wasn't very romantic in love. If the guy expressed himself subtly, she would pretend not to understand. Only a serious confession, directly to her face, would she dare to respond to. But in the cool US campus atmosphere, which guy would confess to a girl who dresses unfashionably and clearly doesn't seem interested in dating? Most guys brave enough to actively confess to girls aren't the honest, shy type. Such guys often target hot girls they can sleep with after a week of dating, not a young girl like Hannah, who might hesitate for a long time even when kissing. Therefore, Hannah, despite being very beautiful, was like a little transparent, with no popularity among guys. This made Hannah feel that she looked very ordinary and didn't dare to dress like those fashionable girls, so she dressed even more primly. This typical Cinderella girl, with Aquaman Ron, was like a little lamb standing next to a big bad wolf, completely out of place. However, with their daily interactions, Hannah couldn't help but develop some affection for Ron, even though she knew this man was very flirtatious and not a good person to invest feelings in. A dance party. After listening to Hannah's explanation, Ron asked with some difficulty. It won't go on too late, will it? Wanda and Felicia hadn't mentioned this, clearly not attending the dance party, but choosing to go home and prepare a welcome dinner for him. If he attended the dance party with Gwen and came back very late, the warm dinner would probably instantly turn into a Shira field. Don't worry, it won't be too late. There's still time to go back for dinner. Hannah put away her hidden emotions, shook her head, and answered seriously, if you have other things to do tonight, you can also leave early with Gwen. Is that so? Thank you for the explanation, Hannah. After thanking her, Ron put his arm around her waist and smiled gently. Then let's go, I'll trouble you to lead the way. It's hard for ordinary people to notice the emotions that just flashed across this girl's face. But don't forget, he now has the ability to read minds. Since he's sure the other party is interested, what does gentlemanly etiquette matter? Hannah looked at the hand holding her in disbelief, then turned to the young man beside her, her eyes wide as she asked, "R.O., Ron. What are you doing?" Ron blinked. Can't you see? I'm hugging you. Why are you hugging me? Let go quickly, don't joke with me. Hannah struggled in a panic, her expression genuine, not feigned. It was as if she really didn't want to be hugged by him. But when Ron read her mind, oh, she clearly wanted it so much. Feeling the secret joy in Hannah's heart, Ron tightened his arm around her, even leaning in and giving her ice cream-like cheek a smack. Good, very springy, very tender. Completely an undiscovered treasure. The only pity was, her clothes were a bit too thick. Even tightly hugging her slender waist, he couldn't fully feel the smooth, tender skin around her waist. Ron was secretly evaluating. In his arms, the girl was completely stunned. Her brain seemed to have been emptied by that kiss. He kissed me just now, right? Ron kissed. He kissed. Hannah lightly bit her soft lower lip and looked at the young man holding her tightly. Her eyes behind her glasses misted over, and her expression was pitiful. As if in the next second, she would accuse him of campus harassment. Anyone unaware of the situation would probably think Ron had just assaulted her a dozen times. No wonder no one pursued her. After all, no one wanted to go to jail. Ron, how could you do this? Hannah murmured. What can I do? Am I supposed to tell you I can read minds? Ron felt that if he told her the truth, the girl would surely die of embarrassment on the spot. Moreover, being with a mind reader, no matter how deep the affection, people would feel uncomfortable. So, he could only smile faintly and respond flippantly, I'll do whatever I want. You. The girl was speechless for a long time. Finally, she lowered her head as if resigned to her fate, letting the young man hold her as they walked. She quietly instructed, don't tell Gwen about this, please. Oh my God. In the distance, the few onlookers watching the situation were dumbfounded. What did I just see? Ron actually hugged her. Jenny gritted her teeth, so jealous she was biting her sleeve. He even kissed her. Hey, Jenny, you're biting your own. Bella pulled her sleeve back in disgust. After Ron and Hannah had walked for a while, the number of students on the road gradually increased. Moreover, most of them were dressed quite formally, scrutinizing the opposite gender with a predatory gaze, or even the same gender. Further ahead is the banquet hall where the dance will be held. Hannah nervously scanned the surrounding crowd, tugging at Ron's clothes and saying, you should let go of me quickly, it wouldn't be good if Gwen saw us. Ron leaned down to her ear and asked with a smile, do you like the thrill of a secret affair? Hearing this, Hannah's body trembled slightly, and for a moment, she stammered, unable to speak. From her heart, complex emotions like nervousness, excitement, entanglement, and shame could be read. And Ron, reading her thoughts, felt an inexplicable thrill of corrupting a little lamb. He couldn't help but reach his hand inside her coat, gradually moving towards. Don't move around, how can you? There are people all around. The girl felt her whole body go limp, and she quickly pleaded with the young man in a low voice, eagerly trying to press down his mischievous hand. But just then, someone nearby suddenly recognized her. Look, isn't that Hannah? She actually has a boyfriend, how rare. Don't say, her boyfriend is really handsome. I used to think she wasn't interested in dating, but I didn't expect her to go for someone of this caliber when she finally did. So sweet, I'm so envious. Hannah is really something. She has such a perfect boyfriend, yet she still dresses so old-fashioned. No choice. Who told her she has a good foundation? It's the same even without clothes. The trend of the discussions became increasingly sour. Hannah was so embarrassed that she buried her head in Ron's chest. However, listening to these sour voices, the girl couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. Among the owners of these voices, quite a few had shown off their boyfriends to her. It was always some vanguard of the football team, a star player of the baseball team, or the heir of some small company. Now, she finally got to show off in return. It was just a pity that she wasn't Ron's real girlfriend. Thinking this, Hannah slowly released her small hand, subtly turning her body towards the young man, letting his hand roam freely. She was already very satisfied if this moment could last a little longer. So soft. This texture is amazing. Ron kneaded it with his palm, intoxicated. Although the size wasn't outstanding, it was the softest he had ever felt. Like a baby's cheek, it made one unable to let go once touched. It could be said that softness and tenderness were Hannah's hallmarks. Whether it was those lips that looked so soft at first glance, or Ron, a clear, youthful female voice made a certain someone, who was enjoying himself, suddenly jolt. Following the sound, he saw a vibrant and beautiful woman walking gracefully towards them. She wore open-toed crystal high heels and a pristine white short evening dress. Under the roadside lights, her golden shoulder-length hair sparkled brilliantly. The confident aura she exuded made the surrounding girls fade in comparison. Many boys looking for partners cast admiring glances at this girl, unrealistic fantasies rising in their hearts. But the blonde girl didn't spare them a glance. Instead, she walked directly towards Ron, who was holding Hannah, her pretty face forming a fake smile. "Can you tell me, what are you two doing?" "Gwen, Hannah was startled and raised her head, stammering, unable to speak, her body trembling uncontrollably. Her pounding little heart was something a certain someone could very clearly feel in his palm. Cough, cough. Ron coughed twice, stepped forward, and bluffed to Gwen. Gwen, Hannah isn't feeling well, so I'm helping her." As soon as he finished speaking, Gwen hadn't reacted much. But the girls who had been discussing Hannah earlier already curled their lips. Not feeling well, who would believe that? They're definitely having a secret affair behind his girlfriend's back. I said Hannah's boyfriend looked familiar, turns out he's stealing Gwen's man. I never thought Hannah was this kind of girl, I thought she was so innocent. Gwen, I'm sorry. Hannah was so ashamed that she buried her head again, remaining silent. Gwen, however, frowned when she heard this, placed her hand on Hannah's shoulder, and gently rubbed it, comforting her in a soft voice. "Hannah, don't be afraid, it's all right." Gwen. Hannah lifted half her face, suspecting she had misheard. But when she looked at Gwen's expression again, she found it was no longer the fake smile from before, but a very warm and sweet smile. "Gwen, thank you." Hannah's gaze darted away, not daring to look at her for long. "You don't have to be like this, I really did wrong by Ron. I'm sorry, I'm a bad girl." "What are you thinking? Do you think I'd be angry with you?" A fair arm reached around from behind them, a small hand resting on Ron's shoulder. Gwen rested her chin on Hannah's shoulder, whispering into her ear. "You know Ron's style, that bad guy. Besides me, he has many other girlfriends, one more of you won't make a difference." Hearing her words, Ron awkwardly scratched his face with his left hand. And Hannah cautiously asked, "So, Gwen, you don't mind?" "I do mind a little, of course, but you don't know, in that aspect of his." Gwen was in the middle of speaking. Her words suddenly stopped. Because she realized there were too many people in this area, it wasn't suitable for talking. So, she straightened up and raised her voice a few pitches. Hannah does seem a bit unwell. Ron, I'll trouble you to help look after her for a while." Hannah listened, dumbfounded. Even if she was naive, she knew Gwen was trying to help her out. "Gwen, you're so kind." After being moved to tears, Hannah whispered a reminder, "But what about your ball? It can't be because of me." "Who said a ball can only have two people as companions?" Gwen chuckled, took Ron's left hand, and led them towards a less crowded area. "We can all go together, the three of us." Abba. Ron didn't know what to say at this point, so he could only play dumb and follow the girl's lead to a corner of a corridor. Still holding on, seeing that there was no one around, Gwen couldn't help but roll her eyes at Ron, reaching her hand into Hannah's collar and grasping the mischievous hand. "You're not feeling well, are you? Is this how Dr. Ron treats patients?" Cough. "I just couldn't pull my hand away earlier." Ron coughed dryly, awkwardly changing the subject. Gwen, you should have told me about the ball sooner, so I could have changed into something more formal. I originally wanted to give you a surprise, but you gave me a surprise first. The girl complained grumpily, then asked, can't those living battle suits change styles at will? Aren't you wearing one? Ron shook his head. I can't wear that kind of battle suit. The symbiote he created could not possess him. Ron had discovered this when the cheat system first arrived. However, this was harmless. After all, the symbiote's abilities would all be replicated onto him. Moreover, Ron didn't particularly like being covered by a same-gender creature. Even if it was one he created himself. Can't wear it. Why? Gwen lowered her head and touched the symbiote on her body, asking curiously, is this a women's exclusive model? Just consider me to have a special physique. As he spoke, Ron scanned the blonde beauty's attire up and down, praising, don't tell me, you really are beautiful tonight, Gwen. Really? The girl happily leaned closer, her sapphire-like eyes sparkling in front of him, her pink lips softly exhaling, then do you want to kiss me? Yes. Ron nodded forcefully and honestly. The ball hasn't started yet, we still have a little time. Gwen finished with a shallow smile, then pressed him against the wall with one hand. Subsequently, she stood on her tiptoes, her crystal heels lifting off the ground. In the blink of an eye, she pressed in, heads and soft shoulders twisted, passionately gnawing. Hey, you two. Hannah, who was very close to the two, watched, dumbfounded. This is too brazen. And Hannah closed her eyes in embarrassment, her skin inexplicably redder than the two passionately kissing. You can kiss, but why are you rubbing me? Around the ballroom, in various nooks and crannies, many young men and women were embracing and kissing. Some couples or casual partners, unable to restrain themselves, even started to get intimate directly. And in the distance of the venue, a man was walking towards this area with slightly hurried steps. He was a tall, middle-aged man, completely out of place with the youthful atmosphere around him. Especially his single arm, which attracted the students' attention even more. Who is that? Why does he only have one arm? Shish, keep your voice down. What's wrong? Do you want to be accused of discriminating against disabled people? I'm just curious. This looks like Dr. Connors, I've seen him at Osborne Group. Doctor, what is he doing here? Hearing the discussions about his single arm from the people around him, Kurt Connor's eyes instantly turned into clear yellow vertical pupils. Then, they quickly receded, returning to normal. He suppressed his irritable instinct and walked directly into the crowd, politely asking the students, hello, has anyone seen Peter Parker? I heard from his classmates that he came this way. Peter Parker, who's that? Never heard that name. What major is he in? As the students asked each other, a small, chubby brown hand was raised. Peter Parker, right. I know. Kurt Connors was overjoyed to hear this voice, and he quickly pushed through the crowd to find a chubby boy with a backpack. What's your name, student? Can you take me to Peter? My name is Ned Leeds, Dr. Connors. The chubby boy pointed in a direction. You're looking for Peter, right? He's taking pictures over there, I'll take you. Okay, thank you very much. Outside the banquet hall, at the right corner. Ron, Gwen, stop moving. Hannah lightly patted their arms, blushing anxiously. You two, take your hands out. Poe. Gwen separated her lips from Ron's, turned to look at Hannah, and chuckled. Sorry, Hannah, I couldn't control myself just now, I just had to. As she spoke, she pulled her hand out from her dress, her 5 slender fingers playfully making a squeezing motion. Grab a little, N. I didn't realize, you're quite well endowed, no wonder Ron wanted to. Hey, Gwen, why are you acting like Ron too? Hannah shifted uncomfortably, her gaze falling on the young man embracing her. Ron, you take your hand out too. It's been in there for so long, a little longer won't hurt, right? Ron was a bit reluctant to let go of the warmth in his palm. Moreover, just now, Gwen actually led his hand. This meant, she really didn't mind. Thinking of this, Ron became bolder. He pulled Hannah closer, and tasted the soft lips he had coveted for so long. The girl's pupils suddenly widened. Ron, however, did not stop his actions. His left hand still held the warmth. His right palm caressed Gwen's waist. They wandered separately. Hannah's lips were exceptionally soft and glutinous. Completely different from Gwen's bouncy texture. It made one want to use both hands, tasting them back and forth. In the end, it still wasn't enough. He simply had the two girls bring their pretty faces closer. Together. Betty, come here, this spot is good. Near the entrance of the banquet hall, several girls were together, choosing a background for their photos. The girl named Betty had a tall figure. Her looks weren't exceptionally beautiful, but her temperament was quite good. She walked to the spot her friends called her to, striking several elegant poses. Another girl held a camera, taking several photos of her in quick succession. Click, click, click. You're not taking good pictures, Vera. Betty looked at the photos and expressed her dissatisfaction. If these photos were posted on Twitter, she would lose followers. I'm not a professional, I can only take them like this, the girl named Vera said, indicating she couldn't do better. Hiring a professional photographer would cost a lot of money. Betty became distressed. And just as she was troubled, among the crowd, a young man with a camera around his neck walked by. Betty's eyes lit up, and she immediately waved, calling out to the young man, "Peter, come over here for a moment." Oh, the young man heard the voice and couldn't help but feel a little headache. It proved that not only happiness is transferable, but trouble is too. Like now, Betty's troubled expression transferred to Peter's face. If he could, Peter Parker really didn't want to run into Betty. Because this girl was not only his ex-girlfriend, but also the object his friend Ned was currently pursuing, she was simply the epitome of trouble. P.S. Here, I can't help but complain, Little Spider really has a lot of ex-girlfriends. Even without Gwen, Mary Jane, Black Cat, Silk, and Silver Sable, he still has several left. In the comics, Black Widow and Captain Marvel both had a thing with him, truly the harem king of Marvel. Come on, Peter, you don't recognize me just because we broke up. Betty smiled and stepped forward, pulling the expressionless Peter Parker over, demanding, "Come quickly and help me take a few pictures, I know your skills are very good." Peter was a bit reluctant. "Can't you take them yourselves? Peter, don't you want to know about Mary Jane's recent situation?" Betty stretched out her neck, tempting him, "If you help me take the photos, I'll tell you." Really? Peter immediately perked up. "Do you know how Mary Jane has been recently? She hasn't contacted me at all these past few days." "Hey, you fickle fellow." Betty rolled her eyes at him, raised her hand to pull down her collar, striking a pose that revealed a significant amount of her chest, and said, "Finish taking my pictures first." "No problem." Peter immediately began to work diligently, the click of the camera shutter incessant. And the girl deliberately lifted her skirt and tugged at her straps, finding some revealing angles for the camera. By the time the photos were finished, the young man's face was flushed red. Although he had dated Betty, they had broken up before sleeping together, so how could he withstand such a blatant test? And when he used to take pictures of her, he never saw her strike such alluring poses. "Now can you tell me about Mary Jane?" Peter knew that Betty and Mary Jane were in the same school band, so she should know about these things. Haha. Seeing the young man's face turn red because of her, Betty's face broke into a victorious smile, and she said cheerfully, "Always bringing up Mary Jane, you should know she works part-time at a bar, right?" Peter straightened his expression. "She's also struggling financially, she has no choice but to work in those places." He knew about Mary Jane's family situation. Mary Jane suffered domestic violence from her father when she was little. After her parents divorced, Mary Jane stayed with her mother at many relatives' houses, always facing their disdain. This made Mary Jane very career-driven, always focusing on her career no matter what. "What are you rushing for? I haven't finished yet." Betty rolled her eyes at him again and continued to speak. "Recently, she seems to have struck it rich. She quit her job at the bar, and often takes time off to pray at church. She doesn't show up much at school, I don't know what she's thinking." "Is that so?" Peter Parker frowned in thought. He remembered, the day Mary Jane started acting strange was when she was a guest at Osborne Group. And on that day, a major incident happened at Osborne Group. Harry was even sent to the hospital. Did Mary Jane also suffer something that day? Bang. While he was thinking, a sudden thud interrupted Peter's thoughts. He turned his head to look, and his frown deepened instantly. "Eat it, eat it, eat it." Not far away, a crowd had gathered in a circle, surrounding something inside. Peter wasn't short, so he could see what was happening in the crowd by standing on his tiptoes slightly. A tall, buzz-cut boy was forcefully pushing a shorter boy's face into a fruit platter in the banquet hall, forcing him to eat a fruit with its skin on. And the people around had no intention of stopping it at all, even cheering and egging them on with excited faces, which could be said to be quite a US characteristic. Flash is bullying people again. Peter knew the tall, buzz-cut bully. In fact, he was often picked on by this guy too. The tall, buzz-cut guy's name was Eugene Thompson, and because he ran fast on the sports field, he earned the nickname Flash Thompson. Flash Thompson had an athlete's physique and often used it to bully the weak, making him a school tyrant. But Peter didn't hesitate for a few seconds before walking towards the crowd. At the same time, on the other side, the noise from outside brought the three immersed in their moment back to their senses. Gwen and Hannah shyly pulled back their necks. They couldn't believe they had just done something so exciting. Among them, Gwen's demeanor was still relatively good, only her eyes were slightly dazed. After all, a few days ago, she had been with Felicia. Compared to that, this didn't seem like much either. As for Hannah, her mind was completely blank. She didn't know how she had, by some strange impulse, ended up with Gwen just now. Tisk tisk, Ron smacked his lips, savoring the moment. He had to admit, this was his first time having such a wonderful experience. It was simply amazing. What's happening outside? It's so noisy. Gwen straightened her expression and asked softly, should we go out and see? It might be good to go take a look. After a brief thought, Ron put his arms around the two girls' waists and walked out. I want to see which fool interrupted my good time. Gordon, you need to eat more fruits and vegetables. Flash was still forcefully pushing the skinny boy he held into the fruit platter, and when he caught sight of a familiar person out of the corner of his eye, he grinned and said, Peter, you've come at the perfect time. Come over and take a picture for us. Peter pushed his way into the crowd and said righteously, I won't take it, let him go. Take the picture quickly, Flash said impatiently. Let him go, Flash. I told you to take the picture. Seeing that persuasion had no effect, Peter took a moment to gather himself and slowly said, let him go, Eugene. Flash's expression turned cold when he heard that name, and he immediately let Gordon go, turning to walk towards Peter instead. Eugene was a typical Russian name, and he didn't like being called that. To him, it was a provocation. Come on. Flash angrily punched Peter in the stomach. He clutched his stomach and collapsed to the ground. Then, another kick landed, and he was continuously beaten. Get up, Peter, come on, Flash roared relentlessly. Just then, Ron, with Gwen and Hannah in his arms, walked closer. Isn't that Peter Parker? This scene looks so familiar. The familiar sense of déjà vu made Ron watch for a moment, not rushing to act. Gwen, however, couldn't stand such bullying and immediately wanted to step forward to stop it. Ron tightened his grip around her waist and asked knowingly, what are you doing? Go help. We can't let Flash bully people like this. The girl gently twisted her waist, as if pouting, let go of me for a bit, I'll let you hug me later. No need, you stay here. I'll handle it. Ron smiled faintly, kneading the soft flesh on her side. Then he released the two girls and stepped into the crowd's encirclement. Why is Ron going over there? Hannah, who was still a bit dazed, snapped out of it when she saw his action and quietly asked Gwen, he'll be fine, right? Gwen, however, looked at the boy's back, furrowed her brows, and gently shook her head, I'm a little worried. Can Ron not fight? Then why is he showing off? Hannah quickly adjusted her glasses and said anxiously. Gwen, let's go pull him back. Flash is not to be trifled with. Last time, a classmate was beaten so badly he ended up in the infirmary. Saying this, she dazedly tried to follow. No, Hannah. Gwen grabbed her wrist and explained helplessly, what I'm worried about is Ron hitting too hard. If he can't control himself, he could really kill someone. Who else is tired of living? Flash Thompson scanned the crowd, spreading his hands, and arrogantly shouted, who else? Under his fierce gaze, everyone couldn't help but take a step back. Only one tall girl hesitated for a few seconds, remaining in place. She looked at Peter lying on the ground with a pained expression, then stepped forward and spoke to Thompson. Flash, that's enough. You're going too far. Betty, you fool. Mind your own business. Flash Thompson pointed at her and cursed disdainfully, don't think that just because you've slept with me, I'll give you face. I'm already sick of you, you by ch. You. Betty Brant's face turned beet red. She hadn't expected Thompson to disrespect her so much. To even blurt out something like that. Feeling the gossiping gazes of those around her, Betty was instantly filled with shame and anger, regretting why she had stood up. She glared resentfully at Peter on the ground, feeling that her humiliation was all because of him. And Peter Parker, lying on the ground, also turned green with anger upon hearing Thompson's words. Betty was his ex-girlfriend and first love, though he no longer loved her. In this situation, having something like that exposed still made him extremely embarrassed. Thompson, you fool. Peter struggled a few times, trying to get up. Bang, but he was heavily kicked again by Flash Thompson, sending him back to the ground. Finally, he could only press his face to the ground, becoming a quiet ostrich escaping reality. The only thing to be thankful for was that the goddess Mary Jane wasn't present to see his embarrassing state. Tap, tap. At this moment, faint footsteps sounded. A pair of high-end casual shoes, whose brand couldn't be identified, reflected in Peter's pupils. And Betty Brant also realized at this moment that someone had tapped her shoulder. She turned around and saw a handsome man standing behind her. "Hello, madam, could you please move aside?" Ron said with a calm expression, then gently pushed Betty Brant aside and unhurriedly walked to the center of the field. The students couldn't help but turn their gazes to him, whispering among themselves. Who is this guy? How dare he walk in there at a time like this? Didn't he see what happened to that nerd who stepped up? I don't know, but he's so handsome. I hope Flash doesn't hit his face later, it would be such a waste if he ruined it. I actually hope Flash hits harder. Why, Winnie, I thought you liked this type the most. Because then, the girl named Winnie's eyes were full of stars, and she said with inexplicable excitement, I can help take this handsome guy to the infirmary, be incredibly caring towards him, and make him fall in love with me. Hearing what this girl said, Ron almost stumbled. Are Americans so calculating now, and so openly about it? You want trouble too, huh? Flash Thompson sized Ron up and down, feeling a bit of familiarity, as if he had seen him a few times somewhere. That's right, I'm a professional at causing trouble. Ron didn't say much. If his mood hadn't been disturbed, he wouldn't have bothered with this matter. Therefore, he didn't want to waste time on a minor character like Thompson. He twisted his wrists and walked towards Flash. He was about to strike directly. As Ron approached, Flash Thompson suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of pressure descend upon him, and for a moment, he didn't dare to make the first move. However, just at this moment, another unexpected development occurred. Peter, what happened to you? Ned the chubby boy shouted, hastily pushing through the crowd and running in. And Kurt Connors, who was following behind Ned, also frowned deeply. Peter was very important to him now, and he absolutely would not allow Peter Parker to get into trouble. Isn't that Dr. Connors, the lizard? Things seem to be getting interesting. Ron's eyes flickered, he stopped his steps towards Flash, and retreated a little, a mass of wriggling liquid quietly appearing in his palm. If he could get his hands on Dr. Connors's regeneration factor, his abnormal self-healing ability would probably advance another level. Peter, are you okay? Ned anxiously ran towards Peter, wanting to help him up. But Flash Thompson straddled his leg, blocking him, and said viciously, Fatty, get lost. You don't want to end up on the ground like him, do you? The thought of having been suppressed by mere aura just now made Flash Thompson feel humiliated and extremely angry. Since Ned had bumped into him, he decided to vent his anger on this soft target. However, Connors couldn't stand it anymore. He stepped forward, pushed Ned aside, and said to Flash with a slightly grim expression, Student, I hope you can leave quickly. Tisk, who are you? Flash Thompson was a top athlete and didn't know Connors at all. He immediately sneered, disdainfully glancing at his empty arm, You're not Peter's dad, are you? You're just as useless as him. Although Thompson didn't say it directly, it was clear from his gaze that he was mocking Connors's missing arm. And as soon as he said that, Connors and Peter immediately became furious. Especially Connors, whose pupils instantly turned into clear yellow vertical slits again. He was even angrier this time, and a few overlapping emerald green scales even began to grow at the corners of his eyes. This made Flash Thompson, who was facing him, think he was seeing things. What the hell is that? Flash, someone suddenly ran out of the crowd. It was one of Flash Thompson's close subordinates. The subordinate ran to Flash Thompson's side and whispered something into his ear. Doctor. After listening, Flash Thompson was slightly startled. Although he wasn't a biology student. But as a student, he didn't dare to disrespect a drive. So, after a moment of hesitation, Flash Thompson turned around, quickly took off, and suddenly ran away. Leaving behind the words, "That's enough for now." This left Connors and Peter, who had been helped up by Ned, with their anger deflated. Peter fumed in Ned's arms. He dared to talk about Dr. Connors and my father. If he hadn't run so fast, I would have taught him a lesson. Oh, come on. Ned exposed him. You're lucky you can even stand steady. Connors suddenly grunted, sharply shook his head, and his clear yellow vertical pupils and emerald green scales were finally suppressed. Dr. Connors, are you all right? Peter asked with concern. Please don't be angry. Eugene is just that annoying. I'm fine, Peter. Connors rubbed his temples and asked him in return, are you okay? I'm fine, Dr. Connors. Peter clutched his stomach, enduring, and thank you and Ned for helping me out. As he spoke, he looked at Betty and Ron again. Thank you too, Betty, and, what should I call this classmate? Ron didn't reply, but instead stared intently at Connors, observing him. Until a small hand held his, giving a gentle squeeze, reminding him, Ron, Parker is talking to you, why are you staring at Dr. Connors? Hearing Gwen's voice from beside him, Ron finally turned to look at Peter Parker, nodding faintly, you're welcome. At the same time, he temporarily put away the symbiote in his hand, thinking, there are too many people now, it's not appropriate to make a move directly. Let's wait until Beast is out of the cage. After the onlookers dispersed, under Gwen's enthusiastic introduction, Ron and Peter and the others got to know each other. Connors was Gwen's intern professor. And Betty Brandt, Peter Parker, and Ned Leeds were all Gwen and Hannah's high school classmates. Among them, Betty was even a member of the campus band Gwen had formed. However, she said a few words casually and then quickly slipped away. Apparently, she felt the recent incident was very embarrassing. Peter felt the same way as her. So after Betty, he also left with Connors and the others. Finally, only the three of Ron were left looking at each other. It's normal for them to be in a bad mood after what just happened. Gwen hugged Ron's arm, a friendly smile on her face, saying, don't mind it. How could I? Ron suppressed his thoughts and replied with a smile, do I look that petty? The girl moved her face closer, her blue eyes blinking playfully, yes, you do. Hey, you little rascal. Ron's face darkened, and he reached out to pinch her small nose. All right, the ball is about to start. Gwen gracefully turned to dodge, pulling him towards the banquet hall entrance with both hands, her delicate face like a blooming primrose. Let's go in quickly. Hannah, don't just stand there, come on. Gwen pulled her boyfriend inside, not forgetting to greet her classmate. She raised a small hand, playfully making a grabbing motion in the air towards Hannah's chest, and even gave the bespectacled girl a cheeky wink. Seeing her action, Hannah immediately remembered being groped by both genders just now, and couldn't help but lower her head shyly, slowly following them. So, at the entrance of the banquet hall, this scene unfolded. A pair of lovers, like a princess and prince, entered together, followed closely by a Cinderella. What are these three doing? They're not actually going to the ball together, are they? You guys, after they finish the ball, will they go 3P? That would be really exciting. Shit, that blonde beauty is so hot, and she's actually willing to be with another girl. Why isn't this good fortune happening to me? Shish, didn't you see the guy as the one who provoked Flash earlier? Don't look, you might get beaten. The students couldn't help but cast their gazes at the three, but seeing it was the guy who dared to challenge Flash Thompson earlier, they all quickly retracted their eyes. Scanned by everyone's gazes, Hannah became even more embarrassed. She simply raised both hands and furtively pulled her jacket, making the collar stand up, covering half of her pretty face. Plus the obstruction of her glasses, it was impossible to tell who this was. PFF'd. After entering the banquet hall, Ron looked back at Hannah's comical and cute appearance, shook his head with a chuckle, and quickly put his other arm around her. What are you doing, covering your face? Do you want to be a superhero too? No. Held in Ron's embrace, Hannah felt much safer. Her eyes, behind her glasses, scanned the students in formal wear around them, and she timidly said, they're all dressed so formally, I feel like what I'm wearing isn't quite appropriate. She hadn't originally intended to attend the ball, but Ron and Gwen had dragged her along. Her simple, girl next door clothes indeed stood out from everyone else's. What's the big deal? Ron didn't mind, smiling and pointing to his own clothes. Look at what I'm wearing, isn't it informal too? He was also wearing a set of casual everyday clothes. Moreover, some subtle parts had been slightly damaged by Sky. It's different. Hannah pursed her soft lips, looked up at him, and softly said, Ron, you look good in anything. Oh, this little girl can even compliment people now. Ron looked a little surprised, and couldn't help but raise the hand that was around her, gently rubbing her hidden pretty face. Your little face is also very cute, no need to cover it. Hannah's expression was bewildered, and she didn't show the joy of being complimented. Ron, I've told you many times before. Gwen bent her waist slightly, her perfectly sculpted upper body leaning forward, her full chest pressing against Ron's arm, and she reminded him with a helpless look in her eyes. Cute is for describing children. How can you still not remember? Ah, sorry, I forgot again. Ron said, a little embarrassed. It's all habits from my previous life acting up. They don't compliment girls as cute here in the US and Europe. Thinking this, he looked sincerely at the bespectacled girl on his left, in his arms, and complimented her again. What I mean is, Hannah, you look very cute, very charming. Is that so? This time, Hannah finally understood. Her eyes showed delight, and she gently folded down her collar. Heartfelt praise from a beloved person always makes one regain confidence. What about me? What about me? After hearing Ron's compliment to Hannah, Gwen pinched his chin with two slender fingers, gently turning his head, and eagerly said, you compliment me too. Girls always like sweet words, and she was no exception. Ron chuckled. The beautiful Miss Gwen Stacy is a renowned goddess figure at school. Does she still need my encouragement? I want it anyway. The girl leaned on him, pouting playfully. All right, you're the most beautiful, most gorgeous, charming, cute, elegant, pretty. Someone reluctantly became a repeater. Hey, you said, cute, again. Did I? Yes, you did. Hannah, you heard it too, right? Hannah nodded honestly. Amidst their playful banter, the three of them wandered over to a banquet table. Gwen picked up a small fork, her sparkling eyes scanning the table. Finally, she speared a small piece of chocolate cake and quickly brought it to her cherry lips to taste. I don't know why, but recently I've found the taste of chocolate quite good. Ron, Hannah, you two try some too. Chocolate is indeed great. Ron also picked up a fork, took a small taste, and then said, but Wanda and the others have also prepared dinner, so I won't eat too much here. I told you so, Hannah. Gwen put her arm around Hannah's shoulder, lightly pointing the fork stained with brown cream at Ron, teasing, our CEO Ron is very busy, you know, he still has to go comfort other girls tonight, so we don't have much time left. Hannah mumbled with food in her mouth, not knowing how to respond at that moment. Ron, with his much thicker skin, put down his fork and invited the two. Actually, you two can also come to dinner. Why would we go? Gwen's eyes held a foxy smile, and she showed him a glimpse of her small, pearly white canine teeth. Is it that after dinner, you also want us to stay over? As she spoke, she propped her chin with her small hand, then feigned a thoughtful expression, murmuring softly. Could it be like those people just said, you want to 3N with us? No, it seems like it's more than 3 people. Gwen's alluring posture and words made Hannah's eyes widen. Gwen actually understands so much. And Ron was even more unable to resist being teased, stepping forward to tightly embrace the blonde girl, his hands caressing her slender waist, delicate back, and fair, long legs. However, it didn't attack other, more tempting areas. Although he also wanted to make bolder moves, there were simply too many people around. And Gwen seemed to have taken advantage of this. Her blue eyes narrowed in pleasure, her eyelashes fluttering softly. Without any struggle or resistance, she allowed the young man's hand to freely invade her delicate body. Gwen. The young man exhaled hot, rough breaths, and his hand on her waist couldn't help but slide down and give a squeeze. How did I never notice before? You're so gone. What do you want to say? The girl whimpered softly, her hazy eyes opening slightly, and she smiled. Never mind, no matter what you want to say, I just love how you can't resist me. Ron took a deep breath and hinted, do you want to go to the changing room? I'll go with you. What for? The changing room? Gwen, however, pretended not to understand. turned her head to look at the center of the ballroom, and softly suggested, "Everyone's dancing now, why don't we go dance too?" Dance. Listening to the Blue Danube playing in his ears, Ron was a bit uninterested. Who dances at a ball, really? Isn't it better to dance at home? When they get tired of dancing, they can go to the bedroom for another kind of duet, or even a group dance. Gwen also noticed Ron's lack of enthusiasm, so she stood on her tiptoes and pecked him on the lips. Then, her lips against his ear, she softly encouraged, "As long as you dance this one dance with me, my dear Mr. Ron, anything you want to do to me is fine." Anything is fine. Ron's mind raced. His hand subconsciously tightened. "Ow!" The girl cried out in pain, covering her backside with both hands, and playfully complained, "What are you doing? We haven't even started dancing yet." Cough. "Sorry, got a little excited." Excited as excited. Gwen's gaze dropped a little, and she cautiously reminded him, "You better control yourself, don't embarrass us when we're dancing later." "Don't worry, I'm in control." Ron straightened his expression, stood up straight, and everything returned to normal. "We can go over now." "Ho!" Gwen gasped in surprise, her cheeks inexplicably flushed. "This, you can control it so easily." No wonder Felicia said she couldn't get it too. "Ow." As she was speaking, Ron lightly pinched her rosy, delicate earlobe. "You're getting naughtier and naughtier." "Hey, let go, let go." Gwen swat his hand away indignantly, pouting, "It's all because you taught me. I used to be a pure maiden." "Ah, all right, all right." Ron awkwardly stopped the topic and gestured towards the center of the ballroom. "Didn't you say you wanted to dance? If we keep messing around, it'll be over soon, let's hurry over." "Wait a moment." Gwen first looked at Hannah with concern and asked, "Hannah, can you wait for us here for a bit?" No problem." Hannah was still eating the refreshments on the table, wiped her mouth, and said innocently, "You two go dance, we'll cheer for you." "No need for cheering, it's not a performance." Gwen smiled slightly, pulled Ron, and turned. "Then we'll go dance for a bit, it'll be quick." Hannah just nodded and continued eating. Only after watching the two enter the dance floor and embrace for a waltz did a hint of envy and longing appear in her eyes. On the other side, the edge of the area near the ballroom, on a rest table and chairs in a corner of the green belt, Peter and Connors sat opposite each other, Peter asking first, "Doctor, what do you need me for? You even came all the way to the school." "Peter, I need you to help me perfect the formula you gave me last time." Kurt Connors stared intently at Peter Parker, as eager as a lustful pervert seeing a plump young woman, and impatiently said, "This is very important to me, please, you must help me." "This, doctor, I know you're in a hurry, but please don't rush yet." Peter was in a bad mood right now and didn't want to say much, but Connor's excited demeanor bewildered him. He could only softly ask, "Did you encounter a problem? Why are you in such a hurry?" Connors seemed to have something difficult to say, and he spoke evasively, "Your formula is viable, but there are still some flaws, which caused a slight problem with my experiment, but it was almost successful." At this point, a hint of madness appeared in his eyes, and he enticed, "Peter, you must come and help me, this will be a great step forward in the history of human evolution. As long as we successfully develop the perfect lizard serum, humans will have no more weaknesses, will not suffer from illness and disability, and will possess great power." Great power. Peter paused at this. Flash Thompson's strong physique flashed through his mind, and he subconsciously asked, "What kind of great power?" Seeing that his genius intern student was interested, Connors immediately said, "After injecting the lizard serum, even people with a weak physique will possess superhuman strength, reaction ability, agility, and healing speed, comparable to the superhumans reported in the news." Superhumans, like superheroes. Peter became interested, gritted his teeth, stood up and said, "All right. Dr. Connors, I'll ask for a leave and help you with the research." "That's wonderful, Peter." A smile appeared on Dr. Connors' face, and he said with relief, "But we must hurry, As he was speaking, he suddenly covered his head in pain, scales began to grow all over his skin, his muscles suddenly swelled, and even his joints began to twist and deform. The lizard serum, it couldn't be suppressed anymore. "Aha!" Kurt Connors knelt on one knee, violently shaking his head and shouting, "Don't come out." Peter rushed over to support him, at a loss for what to do. "Drive. What's wrong with you?" Peter Parker's voice helped Connors regain some sanity, barely maintaining his balance, and preventing his body's transformation from continuing. Peter, we must hurry. With Peter's support, Kurt Connors struggled to stand up and walked towards the school laboratory. We must get to the laboratory quickly. I used to be a professor at Empire University. The school's laboratory has what I need. Help me get there quickly. Doctor, but you don't look good. Don't you need to go to the infirmary? Or should I take you to a big hospital? It's precisely because the situation is bad that we need to be fast. Peter, the doctor can't solve my problem. All right. Peter took a deep breath, picked up his backpack, and led Connors onto the school avenue. But, as luck would have it, they ran straight into a familiar figure. After the figure was reflected in his vertical pupils, Kurt Connors couldn't help but recall that sentence. You wouldn't happen to be Peter's father, would you? You're just as useless as him. Just as useless as him. Useless. Mocking words. Disdainful eyes. Flashed through his mind again and again. Connor's heart surged with an uncontrollable desire for slaughter. Mere food, dares to mock me. Kakaka. The scales that had stopped growing began to furiously crisscross and overlap once more. Parker. Flash Thompson was stunned. Apparently, he also didn't expect to run into Peter and Connors again. Peter glared at him fiercely, but didn't say anything more. The most important thing now was to solve Dr. Connors' problem. Doctor, don't worry, it's not far from the school laboratory, we'll be there soon. Doctor. Peter Parker was comforting him when he suddenly felt a weight in his hand, and then it lightened. He looked down, and Dr. Connors was nowhere to be seen. Doctor. Peter quickly turned his head, looking around for him. But behind him, there was no one, no trace of Connors. What's going on? Peter turned back, confused, wanting to ask Flash Thompson, Hey, Flash, have you seen Dr. Connors? He was just. Splat. Before he could finish, a warm spray of blood splattered on his face. Thump, thump. A faint heartbeat sounded at this moment. Peter stared ahead, his pupils suddenly constricted to the extreme. Just then, Flash Thompson's eyes were lifeless, his head hanging there. Hanging where? This question, our classmate Peter, as his gaze moved downwards, had already found the answer. A grotesque, scaly claw had pierced through Flash Thompson's back to his front, creating a large hole in his chest, from which blood gushed out, completely soaking his clothes as if a dye works had opened. And the heartbeat Peter had just heard came from a crimson heart held by this claw, still faintly beating, speaking of its master's vitality just moments before. Gulp. Peter was stunned by the scene, his throat bobbing uncontrollably. Oh, you put your hand in the wrong place again. In the center of the banquet hall, the music had changed twice, and men and women danced gracefully to the rhythm. Gwen also held Ron's shoulder, her crystal shoes tapping out elegant dance steps. However, her other small hand would occasionally reach back, moving the hand that was resting on her shapely bottom upwards slightly. Ron, are you doing this on purpose? How could that be? Am I such an insensitive person? Ron indicated that he really wasn't doing it on purpose. After all, although as a member of high society, he had certainly learned some dances. But he hadn't danced in a long time, and his movements were already rusty. And the curve of the girl's waist and hips was too smooth, causing his hand to inadvertently slip down during transitions. Fortunately, Gwen was understanding enough. If it were an unfamiliar dance partner, he would probably have been slapped in the face by now. However, most girls don't seem to have such a perfectly proportioned waist-to-hip ratio as Gwen. Thinking this, Ron and the girl gracefully changed direction, and his hand inadvertently slipped down again. Quote. Gwen looked a bit speechless, but seeing Ron's serious expression, meticulously following her, she couldn't bring herself to blame him. She simply grabbed Ron's hand and moved it to the waistband of her dress, whispering softly, Hold on tight, you bad boy. This way it won't fall down, right? Ron nodded busily. At the same time, he secretly controlled the symbiote on Gwen's body, extending a few small tendrils to grip his hand tightly. Just like that, after they danced for a while longer, Gwen happily stopped dancing and smiled at Ron. All right, let's stop here. We shouldn't make Hannah wait too long. Saying that, she pulled Ron back to the dining table. By the dining table, Hannah was holding a biscuit in her mouth, a phone in her hand, engrossed in watching a show. Seeing this, Ron raised an eyebrow, feeling a sense of déjà vu. Because in his previous life, when he attended parties, he would also start playing on his phone after chatting for a while. Hannah, Gwen called out to remind her. Huh, you two are done dancing. Hannah put her phone back in her pocket, looking at them sweetly. What should we do next? I heard there are some minigames later. Hannah, do you want to dance with Ron too? Gwen let go of Ron, pulled Hannah over, and suggested, it's a rare chance to attend a ball, it would be a shame not to dance once. Hannah pushed up her glasses, looking at Ron with anticipation, but my clothes aren't suitable. Ron's casual clothes were generally quite fitted, so he didn't look out of place on the dance floor, but her outfit stood out. To describe it accurately, it was like a Q version doll mixed in with a bunch of realistic dolls. That's not a problem, Gwen pointed to the gown she was wearing and smiled sweetly. Let's go to the changing room, I'll lend you mine. What? Hannah was surprised by her action. How can I? How? Gwen raised an index finger and playfully pressed it against the soft lips of the bespectacled girl. Are you disgusted with me? No, Gwen, Hannah said nervously, you're too good to me, I shouldn't have come to disturb you too. Then, did we drag you to the ball just so you could watch us dance? Gwen retorted to Hannah, and without waiting for her reply, pulled her towards the changing room. Don't be shy, come change with me now. Ron has to rush back for a loving dinner, you know. Cough, cough. Ron coughed twice, knowing it was his turn to step forward. You don't need to change. I have clothes here for Hannah. You do, Ron. Hannah peered at him curiously, scrutinizing him. Where are they hidden? I can't tell. Gwen, however, thought of something and asked Ron delightedly, Ron, is it that kind of battle suit? Do you still have it with you? That's right. Ron nodded slightly, took out a massive symbiote, and handed it to her. Take Hannah to the changing room to use it. It wasn't appropriate to use the symbiote in public, and Hannah seemed a bit timid, so it was better for Gwen to help her get used to it. No problem, leave it to me. Gwen made an okay gesture and continued to pull Hannah towards the changing room. In the changing room, Hannah stared blankly at the wiggling liquid Gwen handed her, saying with a hint of fear, what is this, Gwen? It looks a little scary. Don't be afraid, it's a new product after all. Gwen handed her the symbiote and comforted her. You know, Ron's company is a biotechnology research company, and this is a new achievement they haven't mass-produced yet. I have one on me too. If you put it on, you'll be surprised. Oh, so how do I use this? The bespectacled girl asked, trying to ignore the slimy feeling in her palm. First, take off your clothes. This set is too thick, it won't be convenient for close-fitting shaping later, Gwen instructed, full of experience. These days, the clever Spider-Woman had already done some research on the use of the symbiote. Rustle. Hannah obediently took off her jacket, then lifted her long-sleeved shirt underneath, revealing her slender waist and abdomen like snow-white fat. Pulling it up further, she could even see a bit of a simple white bra. However, Gwen stopped her hand at this moment and chuckled, all right, you don't need to take off anything else. Just take off the thick jacket, you can keep your close-fitting clothes on. Oh, Hannah stopped, a little embarrassed, her face slightly red. Then what should I do next? Bang! Before she could finish asking, the symbiote expanded under Ron's control, rapidly pouncing onto her body and completely enveloping her in the blink of an eye. It's so beautiful. Hannah subconsciously let out a few soft gasps of surprise, but was quickly captivated by the magnificent evening gown on her body. It just turned into clothes like this. Yes, this battle suit has a mimicry function, it can transform into any clothing you desire. Gwen explained thoughtfully, and that's not all. Do you feel your body has become much stronger? It's true. Hannah just took a curious little jump and nearly touched the ceiling. She had never felt her body so powerful before. Therefore, after experiencing this extraordinary strength, Hannah hesitated again. This must be very precious. Ron actually lent it to me to wear. No, it's not. Gwen smiled faintly and explained. He said this one is for you. Ting. By the dining table in the banquet hall. Ron was getting a bit bored, so he picked up a dining knife from the side of a plate and started cutting at his wrist. Cough, don't misunderstand, he didn't have a habit of self-harm. He just wanted to test his healing speed. Gee. The blade rubbed against his skin, making a sound like cutting leather. Ron then realized that his skin seemed a bit tough. He unconsciously added a bit more force to his hand. SSSHH. This time, he finally succeeded. The blade sank into his flesh, and a little dazzling fresh blood oozed from his skin. Although it wasn't deep, it had indeed gone in. Just like a short, powerless man comforting himself. Moreover, the wound quickly healed at a visible speed. He could even feel a force within his flesh pushing the blade out. Not bad, it didn't disappoint me. The speed is about what I expected. Ron achieved his psychological expectation and casually tossed the dining knife back to its original place. As for the DNA remaining on the blade, there was no need to worry about it being copied or researched. He had already tested his own genes, they were completely normal, and he hadn't even awakened the X gene sequence. This indicated that his cheat wasn't as simple as replicating super genes, the principle seemed even more mystical. Ron. While he was pondering, Ron suddenly heard Hannah's joyful voice. At the same time, a slender figure in a black dress rushed straight into his arms. Then, he was enveloped in warmth and softness. He looked down and saw the bespectacled girl hugging him tightly, a look of bliss on her face. Hannah had already changed into a beautiful short evening dress. Her slender figure was perfectly outlined. And, after shedding the slightly thick restraints, her soft body felt even more plush to hold. This made Ron reluctant to let go. He couldn't help but gently rub here and pinch there. Ron. The mischievous hands on her body made the girl twist slightly, moaning softly, "You're poking my stomach, it's throbbing." Hiss, really. Ron patted her back, awkwardly saying, "Then you should let go quickly, don't hug so tight." "It's okay." Hannah's eyes, behind her glasses, were glistening. She pursed her lips and said, "You can poke me however you like." Quote. A question mark appeared over Ron's head. It seems a certain saying was indeed true. Girls with glasses are the most flirtatious. He didn't know what she was like in bed. But right now, she certainly was quite stimulating. Hannah, Ron, what are you two doing? Gwen walked over to the dining table, reminding them, "Hurry up and dance a song, we'll be switching activities soon." "Ah, right. Hannah quickly let go of Ron, then nervously took his hand and quietly asked Gwen, "Then we're going, Gwen?" "Why are you asking me? I'm not the one dancing with you." Gwen smiled brightly, pushing their backs with her small hands. "Hurry up and go, don't miss the chance, Hannah." I will." Hannah nodded, sincerely saying, "Although I've said it many times, I still want to say it again." "Thank you, Gwen." With the princess's assistance, Cinderella finally got to dance a waltz with the Prince, Aquaman, as she wished. The two, whose movements were slightly clumsy, tried their best to keep to the beat of the music. And they danced quite well. Finally, the dance ended its last beats with a furious roar. Accompanying this beastly roar, a ferocious green monster appeared at the entrance of the banquet hall. It was tall, covered in scales, had tattered clothes on its body, and its appearance was part human, part lizard, like an alien lizard from urban legends. "What the F? What is that? What a big lizard. This isn't a Halloween party, is it? Did this guy come to the wrong place? You think that's fake? Oh, buddy, I think you should get your eyes checked." Upon seeing the lizard appear, some in the hall screamed in surprise, others questioned it. But even those who questioned it were scared back a few steps by the lizard's drooling, sharp, long mouth. Food, all food. A pair of clear yellow vertical pupils constantly scanned the people in the hall. The irrational Connor's eyes were filled with a craving to feed. What is this? Hannah, who had just finished dancing, was also startled by the lizard's appearance, saying blankly, "Is this a secret performance for the ball?" Ron rubbed her head, speechless, pointing to a boy who had wet his pants from fright, and said, "What kind of secret performance do you think would scare someone like this? So this is a real monster." The cute girl with glasses eyes widened instantly. "Gwen, Ron, let's run." Hannah tugged at the hands of the two beside her, anxiously reminding them, "The movies say that when you encounter a terrifying monster like this, you have to run. You two go first." Gwen could tell that this lizard meant trouble. She gently brushed Hannah's hand away, looked at Ron, and instructed, "Ron, you take Hannah and leave first. I'll stay behind to evacuate the crowd." Ron understood her meaning and didn't refuse, pulling Hannah along. "Let's go, Spider-Woman will handle this." What does Spider-Woman will handle this mean? Hannah didn't understand, her eyes full of confusion. But Ron didn't say anything more for now. He dragged her and ran towards the back door. At the same time, roar, The lizard's last shred of humanity was overcome by its bestial nature. It targeted a fresh, juicy target and charged furiously towards it. Bang, clatter. Obstacles like dining tables in its path were all ignored. It either crashed through them directly or leapt over them, using them as stepping stones. It's coming. Run, run. This agile speed and immense strength finally made the students realize the true danger. They panicked and started fleeing, the crowd pushing and trampling each other, instantly descending into chaos. Everyone, don't panic. Run towards the back door. Gwen's clear voice commanded loudly, while she hid one hand under a table. A pinkish-white tentacle extended from her sleeve, silently winding its way under another distant table and wrapping around the table leg. Then, bang, the table was forcefully flung, accurately hitting the charging lizard in a vital spot, temporarily slowing its attack. The crowd was able to catch its breath, and following Gwen's reminder, they all ran towards the back door. Seeing everyone turn around and face away, Gwen also quickly flashed away, hiding in the shadow behind a pillar. Her white evening dress rapidly transformed, turning into liquid that covered her entire body, forming a tight yet graceful pinkish-white battle suit. Come on. After completing her transformation, the girl twisted her wrists, then confidently stepped forward, entering the lizard's line of sight. Spider-Woman won't lose this time. Roar. After being struck in the head by the table, the lizard roared in pain. But it also sobered up a bit because of it. Regaining some human consciousness. SSS's. Its slender, bright red tongue flicked in and out, and its pair of dangerous vertical pupils contracted and expanded, fixing on Gwen, who had emerged from behind the pillar. The taste is a bit different. Who are you? The lizard's voice was hoarse and muffled. What? You can talk. Gwen cautiously lowered her shoulders slightly. Her slender muscles were tensed and ready, prepared to unleash her strength at any moment. What does that mean? Do you still want to eat me? Lizards preying on spiders. It's quite in line with natural law. Having taken on the identity of Ghost Spider, the girl seemed to have become much more talkative. But you need to be careful, I'm not just an ordinary spider. No. The lizard shook its head vigorously, suppressing the urge to feed. What I need to do, is to let all humanity complete a great evolution. To become perfect beings like me. Although he was now suppressing his beastly instincts, his mind was still distorted by his bestial nature, making him extremely radical, and his values and personality were amplified versions of his normal state. Oh, perfect like you. Gwen glanced noncommittally at his drooling appearance. All right, great Mr. Lizard, although I don't want to hurt your pride, I still want to say. No one likes lizards, except for Indians. This sharp jab completely infuriated the lizard. Bug. The lizard cursed, moving its strong, reverse-jointed lower limbs, its 3-meter-tall body rapidly rushing towards Gwen. Its gaping maw, sharp claws, and powerful tail. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe for more videos.